Alrighty, chat. Welcome on in. Somebody asked if the Internationale was the Chinese national anthem. It was Chinese national anthem. I think it was also the Soviet Union's national anthem at one point. I think they changed it. Both countries changed it. You now know about the Soviet March. It's now the March of the Volunteers. Yeah, exactly. So pretty famous, obviously. Everybody likes the Internationale. Did Mike take off his headset again? I don't know what that means. Welcome on in, everybody. New Trump Epstein photos just dropped courtesy of the Wall Street Journal. Oh no. Oh no. You might have to talk about that, chat. Welcome on in, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday. We're getting close to the holidays. This is probably the weekend. If you've been procrastinating on your shopping, what's up, King Daddy? D-Mac. If you've been procrastinating on your shopping, now's probably the weekend to go and get it done. Since no one linked, thank you, Pockets. Are we gonna cover the flute guy today? Flute guy? The fuck is the flute guy? From the Gamer Awards? Oh, shopping is for bourgeois degenerates. No, it's not. Giving gifts is older than being human. Hey, Mike, it's been a joy over the last few months spending long hours here. I'll finally be starting a job at public schools and joining my union. Congratulations, brother. You can still watch me. U.S. seizure of rogue oil tanker off Venezuela signals new crackdown on seizure fleet. On shadow fleet, excuse me. Illicit crude oil? What makes it illicit? What makes it illicit? Because United States America says so? Like, what makes it illicit? What are you talking about? It's not like there's some sort of Security Council resolution. What are you talking about? Illicit. Strongman Nicolas Maduro. Strongman. By cutting off access to oil revenues that have long been the lifeblood of Venezuela's economy. I mean, they already did that a million times over. What are you talking about? It could also signal a broader U.S. campaign to clamp down on ships like the Skipper, which experts and U.S. officials say is part of a shadowy fleet of rusting oil tankers that smuggle oil. Why are they rusting? What? All ships rust. Like, what are we saying? What is this? What are these fucking editorializations that smuggle oil for countries facing stiff sanctions such as Venezuela, Russia, and Iran? From who? Sanctions from who? There are hundreds of flagless, stateless tankers that have been a lifeline for revenues, sanctioned oil revenues, for regime like Maduro's, Iran's, and the Kremlin. Sanctioned by who? Who is sanctioning them? It still hasn't been in the article. Sanctioned by who? Like for regimes like Maduro's, Iran, and for the Kremlin, said Michelle Weiss Bachmann. Michelle Weiss Bachmann. Really? Really? You're a maritime strategist. How do you not talk about the Red Sea? There are moments I'm proud to be South Australia. Peter M is the Don Dustan of his time. Thanks for being a politician with vision and purpose beyond winning an election. Social media giants are no longer able to have children under 16 with accounts. And other photos of Donald Epstein. Sorry, chat. Photos released by the House Oversight Committee show Donald Trump. Faces are redacted by the Committee for Privacy. They're just photos of Trump with people. Like, what is the am I missing Epstein in this photo? Well, why is this a post? Who gives a fuck? All right, we may have to watch that later. Dan Goldman is one of the best members I've ever served within Congress. House Democrats need Dan in the next Congress because he's exactly the right fighter for this moment. Lander told the Daily News his disagreements with Goldman on Gaza is secondary to what he sees as Goldman's lackluster opposition to Trump. On Gaza, we have some disagreements, but the core rationale is because it's time for fighters, not folders. Some disagreements. Wow, guys. I'm so excited for Dan Goldman to be replaced by another Zionist. I have to be honest with you, chat. I am not... I don't see it. I don't see Brad Lander as the guy. Honestly, I think he sucks. I think he's Chuck Schumer too. I don't get it. He's not charismatic. I mean, being a Zionist in 2025 is insane. The DSA cucked itself for this guy, basically. And like, I know, I mean, the only rationale is political pragmatism. It is we need Zoran's promises to have weight. That's what it is. It's we need Zoran's promises to have weight so other politicians will want to cave to him because they want to have the carrot and the stick. That's what this is about. It's not about what is good for socialism. It's not about what's good for DSA or the left in the nation. It is about we want to make sure that Zoran Mamdani is as powerful in New York as we can make him. And maybe that will result in a lot of left-wing candidates in the future. But I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. Can you show me what he's actually pushing the left? Sometimes you have to pay back the people who helped you. Lander came through the mayoral, like it or not. I mean, I think, Captain Carl, I think that's exactly what's happening. But I'm not Zoran Mamdani. I don't have to go along with his game. I don't have to do what Zoran Mamdani wants me to do. He could try to pay back Brad Lander. I don't have to help him. I don't give a fuck what he says about some other politician who sucks. That's where I disagree, where it's like DSA is not Zoran Mamdani's personal, cult squad. It's an own organization of principled leftists who supported Zoran because of his leftism, not because of him. And this is the problem that we fundamentally have with parasocial politics, which is what we have today. I mean, I'm a beneficiary of it. Many other people are beneficiaries of it. The parasocial politics problem, it's a PPP, is that now everything that's good for Zoran is somehow going to be good for me. It's not true. It's not true. Isn't this armchair quarterbacking? No, because Brad Lander is a different politician in a different race. I don't have to go along with Zoran's fucking interference on federal politics because it will help him in New York City, which I don't give that. I mean, like give me a fucking break. New York, see, the problem is with New York DSA is, as much as I want to criticize the right-wing New York City DSA, they're winning. So, I mean, if you have problems with their shit, we need to like have our own wins where we are taking a different path. So I remain humble because it's like they have a Zoran. Where's my Zoran? You know, so it is what it is. That being said, I can look at this and go, yeah, I don't like Brad Lander. I can evaluate Brad Lander like an adult on my own. Hey, Mike, I saw an online article titled "The Mamdani Effect: More People Moving into New York Instead of Out." Yeah, actually, housing prices have gone up because more people want to go to New York. The places that are seeing people leave are the places where the centrists have gotten their way. Jasmine Crockett sucks. I've always been an anti-Jasmine Crockett person. It doesn't mean I like Talrico. Just, you know what I mean? Like, you're allowed to hate them all. I just want to let you guys know that you're allowed to not like everybody. You don't have to like Talrico because you don't like Crockett. I think they both suck, if I'm being quite honest with you. Mike, hypothetically, what stops Venezuela from giving orders to just open the tankers and light it up before the U.S. can seize it, which I disavow, of course? I mean, that would be ecologically terrible. The U.S. would spin that as like, Venezuela intentionally causing oil spills, and then there'd be like video of like a seal with oil on it. They'd be like, they're destroying the environment. Maduro's gone mad. They're doing eco-terrorism. See, what I think Maduro should do, okay, well, let me rephrase, and let me give you some gap in time between what I just said and what I'm going to say, because I need to make sure the clip is as tight as possible. I don't want to give them any clips that are loosey-goosey. The thing that concerns me the most is that our poor American service members might be killed on the tankers as they try to seize them. If you put a few dozen guards on an oil tanker and they're armed with light weapons and a helicopter starts trying to rope in and then it just gets raked with machine gun fire, our poor soldiers could be murdered and die horrible deaths. And it would be a legal resistance against seizure. And I think that would redound very poorly. Like if there was a video of an American helicopter being raked with machine gun fire and then crashing, and then, 15 American service members dying and 5 being captured, that would probably be really bad for the support of this war. So I don't think scuttling the ship and causing a big, disaster is a good idea. I just think it would be a terrible look if American service members got killed. The Democratic Party would support the seizure like now? No. I think most Americans will be like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, why are we attacking? Like, a lot more people. See, here's the thing. As soon as body bags start coming back, people start going, you know, this is not a good idea. Maybe it's getting a little risky. When they feel like there's no threat to Americans, they feel like they can bomb brown people all day. It is only when body bags start coming in the other direction that Americans start going, wait a minute, this isn't a good idea. Neocons want to insinuate violence and U.S. soldiers' deaths to justify the war. They're already going to eventually do that. You might as well do it in a way that is as painful to the U.S. as possible. The belief that you could avoid American aggression by never retaliating is false. 2 Navy U.S. SEALs declared dead after raid to seize Iranian weapons bound for Houthis. The Houthis were able to stop the U.S. attacks because they kept a relentless barrage on the U.S. Navy that made them defensive. And seizing ships, guys, is aggressive acts of war. If somebody defends themselves, it is what it is. All right, let's keep going. What are we talking about today? I didn't even really get into it. Sorry for the long rambling start. Trump's approval is cratering because the economy sucks. It's getting worse. Inflation is bad. The AI bubble is probably peaking. And he's trying to get us into a war with Venezuela. There are massive floods in Washington, chat. 100,000 people were evacuated due to massive floods in Washington. Nick Fuentes is a botter, as are all the right-wingers. Asmongold, Ectone, they bought like fucking crazy. And it's funny because we don't. I'm very intimately aware of the largest left-wing streamers, and not one of them bots. And it's, well, I mean, the largest ones that exist now. I don't know if there's other people that are going to start trying to bot. The thing about the bots is it doesn't work. Oh, Clandis is botting for sure. Clandis Owens is botting for sure. Of course. And China's economy is rocketing higher. I saw a chart today while I was on the shitter chat before the stream that absolutely blew my fucking mind. China-US manufacturing productivity by sector. And as a Pennsylvanian, I looked at the steel production, and I've never seen anything like it. Value added per worker in US dollars, China, the steel industry, $278,547. Physical output per worker, tons, 1,460 tons of steel per worker. Average worker wage, $13,500. Here's the thing that's insane. Value added per worker in 2024 was $258,362. So like, if you look at the economy of China, this amount of steel is fucking crazy. 3.3 tons of steel per worker, greater than the American. For every one, excuse me, let me explain it again. For every 1 ton of steel produced by an American steelworker, a Chinese steelworker produces 3.3 tons. Say that again. For every ton of steel produced by an American steelworker, a Chinese steelworker produces 3.3 tons. That is, I don't know how, I don't know if you guys understand that. I don't think you get it. That's fucking crazy. If you look at shipbuilding, I think DWT is, it is deadweight tonnage, which is the cargo that a ship can carry. That's what deadweight tonnage means. So when you're talking about shipbuilding, deadweight tonnage is how much like ship capacity have you produced? The average Chinese worker produces 2.9 deadweight tons for every 1 deadweight ton that America. It's not just that they're producing more profit or value add. It's that the physical amount of material they're producing is 3 times an American worker. Guys, it's fucking Jover. The only industry where America is basically on par with China is producing cement, like per worker. China still has a lot more workers in cement. Therefore, they're producing a lot more cement. That's the only industry that the U.S. is kind of competitive in productivity-wise. China is producing twice as much solar modules per worker, 2.5 times the electric vehicles per worker, 3 1/3 times the steel per worker, and 3 times as much deadweight tons as far as about ships per worker. If you look at the wages and value add and being like, yeah, wow, you know, we need to raise the wages of Chinese people, I completely agree with you. I'm just trying to let you I'm trying to let you apprehend that it's not China winning because they have a lot more cheap workers that are producing more in aggregate, but poor worker are less productive. That's no longer the case. Chinese workers are now producing significantly more per worker than America. That means their productivity is superior to the US in such a manifestly huge way that's insane. That means the US cannot compete. I as I said before, like, I just keep looking at the steel and I'm like, how? 1,422 tons of steel per worker? What? If you want to understand like what this means, I'll try to put it in terms that you can understand. A nice mid-rise tower uses roughly 10,000 tons of steel. All right. So when you say a worker is producing 1,422 tons of steel, that means you only need roughly 8 Chinese steel workers per skyscraper, mid-sized tower. Like a mega tower uses like 4 times that or more. 8 steel workers per tower? You're fucking cooked, bro. You're fucking cooked. I'm a Pennsylvanian, so I understand steel shit a little bit more because of the industry. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Like, oh no, it's cooked. It's cooked because you need 3 times as many American steelworkers and they make 6 times more. So produce the same building just from the steel alone. It's just Jover. We can't compete. Talk about like 30 times more expensive. Yo, it's so over. It's not even funny. It's not even funny. Why doesn't China end the space race and build a moon base? China is building a moon base. They're planning to build a moon base soon in the South Pole. They literally just came out a couple weeks ago that they're about to do this. Here, let's watch this video because you asked.
Is building a moon base. As we speak, work is already well underway to create the first permanent outpost on the moon. It begins with robots, and we've already seen plenty of Chinese robots up there, but this is only phase 1 of a much bigger plan that will see people living on the surface of the moon, and below it as well. There are problems though. The moon is not an easy place to do anything. Even just landing there safely is still proving to be a challenge. The biggest obstacles revolve around the environment of the moon. For one, it doesn't have an atmosphere, which means that there's no air, but it also means that there is no insulation between the surface of the moon and the sun. So when the sun is up, the moon gets incredibly hot, over 120 degrees Celsius. And when the sun sets, the temperature drops down below negative 130 Celsius. Because the moon rotates much more slowly than the Earth, what you end up with is 14 days of sunlight followed by 14 days of night. Then there are new challenges on the moon that are less familiar to us, like cosmic radiation. That's what you get when you go beyond the protective shield of the Earth. Our planet has a magnetic field that's created by all of the flowing hot metal inside the core of the Earth. The moon doesn't have a magnet at its core, so all of that radiation ends up bombarding the surface, which means that if we're going to live there, then we need to put an effective barrier between us and the deadly rays of the sun. And unfortunately, a metal wall is not going to do the job. Then there are meteorites. What do you see when you look at the surface of the moon? Craters. What made those craters? Rocks. And this is an ongoing process. The moon gets pummeled by rocks from space on a regular basis. So does the Earth, but we have an atmosphere that's able to create enough friction to burn those rocks into dust before they ever reach the surface. Again, no atmosphere on the moon. So trying to keep anything alive on the moon is going to be a pretty difficult task. And yes, American astronauts have lived on the moon many years ago, but that was only for like 3 days at a time. What we are aiming for in the 21st century is long-term habitation that eventually leads to a permanent presence on the lunar surface. But this is something that China has already started practicing. For example, the Chang'e 4 landing in 2019 carried with it a small, sealed biosphere experiment called the Lunar Microecosystem. It was a container filled with seeds for plants like cotton and potato, along with fruit fly eggs and yeast. The idea was to try to keep these things alive by supplying them with air, water, and nutrients. Then see how they fared in the low gravity and high radiation environment
Hello from China.
of the moon.
Let me show you.
At first, it looked like some of the seeds had fared pretty well. The cotton plants actually sprouted and became the first new leaves to grow on the moon. But even that new life was short-lived. Chinese scientists reported that within just a few days, extreme temperature swings had killed everything inside the experiment. That just helps to prove how inhospitable the lunar environment really is. And that's why China has been investing a lot of their time and resources into using robots on the moon that will set the stage for people to eventually arrive. We can think of this like a three-part plan for China's moon base. Phase 1 is reconnaissance, Phase 2 is construction, and Phase 3 is habitation. We are currently about halfway through Phase 1. That's what the Chang'e lander missions have been all about. Sound completely changes how space feels. The right score can make a lonely planet feel alive.
I was banned from NMP Law's Discord for asking if Asmongold still owns Starforged and that I wouldn't buy from a company since he is a racist. You're interfering with the money, man. Like, you know.
Or turn a quiet orbit into something emotional.
Huh?
And for a new 3D cinematic sequence we're building, I've been creating the entire soundtrack using a tool called Suno. Suno is
no, bro, no! No, don't do Suno! No! Shut up with Suno! Bro, come on, I'm watching the video on China. Don't bring in the AI slop crap.
Look at what Phase 2 is all about. There are a few ways to construct a moon base. The most obvious solution would probably be just build it on Earth, then launch it into space and land it on the moon. Simple in theory, but also incredibly difficult, risky, and resource intensive. A second option would be to use resources from the moon in your construction process. We call that in situ resource utilization, and that's what China is focusing their efforts on right now. A future mission called Chang'e 8, which is
This is chat. This is the new frontier. If you're able just to send like cheap little constructor bots and use regolith or materials that are already there on the planet, the ability to build structures becomes a hell of a lot cheaper. And then you could only bring you could bring products that require like, you know, terrestrial industry, and you can save a lot because like construction materials are heavy as fuck. So if you could leave those off and you just bring, you know, the stuff that requires, as I said, terrestrial industry, you could build a lot bigger base quicker.
Is expected to launch in 2028, will carry an experiment that hopes to turn the lunar soil into bricks. This is how that construction process would look on the moon. An autonomous robot would collect lunar soil and pack it into containers that act as a mold for the brick. Then the containers are placed in an oven where they get cooked at high temperature to create these different shapes like rectangles, cubes, and arches. Then another autonomous robot works to stack the bricks and apply mortar into the joints to create low-lying structures. The same bricks can also be laid in the ground to make new infrastructure like roads and landing pads. Those thick stone blocks are going to provide incredible protection from things like radiation and meteorite impacts. They are also going to make fantastic insulators against the wild temperature swings from day to night. But there are downsides as well. The brick house is not very suitable for holding internal pressure. Since the moon has no atmosphere, we need to create our own pressurized environment inside the habitat. The rectangular shape with its hard edges doesn't have enough natural strength to contain the atmosphere. Think about common items like propane tanks and water towers. They are always round, so we would need something like that inside the brick structure to make a real habitat. So that's a traditional construction method using lunar soil, but the Chinese are also working on a more futuristic idea as well. This is a 3D printed habitat called the Moon Pot Vessel. It eliminates the need for bricklaying, but it does come with some extra complications. You can't turn lunar soil directly into a 3D printable material. It has to be mixed with an adhesive first, and that adhesive needs to be shipped from the Earth. So it's not entirely self-sufficient, but the design of the moon pot has its advantages. Before they begin 3D printing, the autonomous machines would lay down a thick slab of concrete-like material made...
Somebody asked, why the fuck would they not just build the base and keep it on Earth? Even if we destroy the climate, would Earth still be a far, far better starting point than the moon could ever be? Oh, that's a good question. The answer is China is trying to develop fusion, and one of the resources that is available in the southern Shackleton crater is something called helium-3. Helium-3 is very rare on Earth, but common on the moon. So you could perhaps collect helium-3 on the moon, ship it back to Earth, and, you know, help catalyze possible fusion energy. Also, the other answer to that is because we can and it's cool. Like being able to go to space and explore and do shit. We get to do that because it's cool. And we want to learn more about the universe, and we want to, experience the solar system beyond Earth. How finite is it? Actually, interestingly enough, if you study fusion, which again, I am just an interested amateur. I don't know. I'm not a fusion engineer. It's, this is outside of my wheelhouse. But from what I understand, China is pursuing a number of strategies where they will breed more fuel through creating things like lithium blankets around these fusion vessels, so that the process of fusion will help create more fuel for further fusion. So you support H3? Oh no!
From lunar soil. This is going to provide a solid foundation for the moon pot, and it's going to help absorb vibration from any potential earthquakes on the moon. Happen frequently. Then to create the pot, they heat soil to its melting point. They mix it with the adhesive that will hold everything together once it's solidified, and then the printing head simply moves around in circles to lay down the mixture. The shape is designed to mimic the natural strength of the eggshell, and it uses 3 layers of material: an outer shell, an inner shell, and this triangular rib structure in the middle that provides core strength. So you can pressurize this habitat without any need for internal lining. And the multi-layered approach is still going to provide a very effective barrier and insulation against the hazards of the moon. 3D printing also makes it easier to build taller structures, which actually makes a lot of sense on the moon. The low gravity allows people to easily move up and down ladders, and the lack of atmosphere means that wind and weather is never a concern. Now, these construction plans are ambitious, but they're also very practical, assuming that the Chinese can solve one very big problem: energy. Whether it's cooking soil to make bricks, or 3D printing, or even just keeping the lights on, a moon base is going to need power. And for
So one of the things is, the interesting thing about the Shackleton crater is that it stays in sunlight for longer.
China wants to go nuclear. In 2025,
nuclear reactors.
Chinese and Russian governments announced a new partnership to build a nuclear power plant on the moon. This should come as no surprise. The Russians have always wanted to play a major role in the Chinese moon base, but it wasn't clear how much they were actually able to contribute. For example, in 2023, the Russian Space Agency sent their own Luna 25 spacecraft to land on the moon and contribute to the reconnaissance phase alongside the Chang'e missions. Instead, Russia's probe lost control and crashed into the surface. They haven't tried again. But one thing that Russia definitely can do is build nuclear power plants. The state-owned company Rosatom is #1 in the global market for manufacturing nuclear reactors and enriched uranium. They not only make nuclear infrastructure for Russia, but they also export reactors to other nations like Belarus, Bangladesh, Turkey, and Egypt. They even built a floating nuclear power plant in the Arctic Ocean off the coast of Siberia. So a power plant on the moon doesn't actually sound like that much of a stretch. And in many ways, the moon is actually a better place for nuclear energy. For example, cooling the reactor can be done simply by keeping it out of the sun. We know that the moon gets incredibly cold at night, but the same also goes for any place that's shaded from the sunlight, like inside the rim of a deep crater. So you can build your power plant there and never worry about overheating.
Warhammer 40K. Total War was announced last night, and I'm super psyched. I used to be a Creative Assembly fan, back with the medieval Total War, the OG, back in 2003. I don't know. It feels like it's fallen off. You know what I mean? So I hope they can pull it off.
Then there's nuclear waste, a big problem on the Earth, but since the moon is already saturated with cosmic radiation from the sun, you really can't make that environment any worse than it already is.
Hey, champagne socialist.
Now, if this first construction project on the surface of the moon works out as planned, then China already has ambitions for an even bigger and better lunar colony. They are going underground. We know that the Chinese are very interested in exploring lava tubes on the moon. These are actually giant networks of underground tunnels that were cut into the surface by ancient volcanic activity. We know that they exist because we've seen locations on the moon where the roof of the tube has collapsed, leaving behind a round opening that reveals a hollow cave underneath. These caves provide natural protection from meteor strikes and cosmic radiation. They also insulate from the wild temperature swings on the surface caused by the lunar day and night cycle. So it's actually a pretty perfect spot to build a moon base. And naturally, China already has a plan to investigate this as part of their robot exploration phase. The Chang'e 7 mission, launching in 2026, is going to be equipped with a ground-penetrating radar that will map the lunar subsurface at the moon's south pole and find any potential underground caves and lava tubes. Now, we know what the robot reconnaissance phase looks like right now, and we know about some of the things that China wants to build in the future. So how do we get there from here? Well, China's moon base will begin construction in the 2030s. They are targeting a location at the lunar South Pole where we know that the largest amount of in situ resources are going to be found.
Including water. That's another element. I think Shackleton Crater has water ice.
At first, this will be a fully autonomous robotic installation. There will be no people involved in building the moon base. They are going to let robots do all of the hard work, and then once everything is up and running and proven to be safe, that is when the crew arrives. China has already scheduled 5 big moon landings between 2031 and 2035, each deploying a component of the future moon base. The first establishes the command center with basic energy and telecommunications facilities. Mission 2 brings lunar research and exploration facilities. Mission 3 is all about in situ resource utilization technology. Number 4 puts all of that into use with a robotic exploration and experiment mission complete with a distributed sample collection and return. Then, landing number 5 will establish moon-based astronomy and Earth observation capabilities. So that puts Chinese people living on the moon by the end of the next decade. They are going to try and land their first astronauts up there in this decade just to show the world that they can, but they don't seem to be interested in doing repeated short duration stays like the old Apollo strategy. Now, of course, China isn't the only nation with their eyes on a permanent moon base. America has a big plan of their own, so there will be competition for lunar real estate, and that is what we are going to take a look at next time. So stay tuned.
Bro, we ain't going back to the moon. We're having Elon Musk scam our asses, okay? Like we're not going back to the moon. Like let's be real. Elon Musk keeps trying to get Starship can't even fucking orbit. It keeps blowing up. Fucking Boeing's capsule fucking depressurized and was completely unsafe, and they had to like keep astronauts in the International Space Station for like 6 months longer than they wanted. They're like, okay, you guys are just making a quick trip, and then they got stuck. They canceled the moon base project in favor of Elon sending people to Mars. LOL. Thousands of truckers lose license under Trump English mandate. 9,500 truck drivers have been pulled off the road for failing to meet the English language proficiency requirements reinstated by the Trump administration. Immigrants account for an estimated 18% of all truck drivers, and some estimates show the industry is already short tens of thousands of drivers. Honestly, like, I wouldn't have said this 5 years ago, but maybe being a truck driver is a good profession because the self-driving hype never delivered. And now that they're taking, there's such a huge shortage of truck drivers because a lot of people had that same idea. Like, I guess they're going to try to get rid of my job, so fuck it. I'll do something else. I'm a truck driver, long days, very lonely. Yeah, no, true. The industry is just debt bondage. It's horrible. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think the only way I could do truck driving is if I had my partner go with me. You know what I mean? But even then, that kind of sucks. I just applied to 5 schools to get my PhD focus in areas like aerospace and space manufacturing. I'll get us there, JK. I'll go work somewhere after. We know where you want to work. We know where you want to work. Earlier, somebody was like, okay, Mike, China's building a moon base, but how is their cost of living?
Asked me to show them the grocery price again. It's cold, it's winter. You know how lazy I am. Look, last night just snowed. But okay. Okay, now I put on this down jacket, big one, $15, and my $10 shoes. Let's go. Because capitalism is fancy, so everything in capitalism is more expensive compared to our socialism. I take this taxi, it costs me 80 cents to get where I shopping in my neighborhood. 80 cents dollar. Everything I'm going to say the price is in dollars, so easy for you to compare. Because it's winter time, so the grocery price is like a triple and a double compared to summertime. All the vegetable and the fruits, the price is under $1 for half kilogram. Some are $half, half kilogram. Some are $1/4 half kilogram. The reason we have so many different vegetables in our grocery market is because in Chinese cuisine, we have many ways to cook vegetables. We barely eat salad. These are fresh porks. The price is like $1.5 half kilogram. I heard online that in Taiwan, the capitalism system, the price is also expensive. Many people complain they cannot afford grocery in Taiwan, China. Well, again, because capitalism is so fancy, so everything gonna be more expensive compared to our lame socialism. I'm being sarcastic, okay? In case someone didn't understand me. Okay, here's more fruits. It's just under $1, most of them. Also, I think capitalism is so nice. They don't want people to be lazy, so they make everything expensive. So you have to work hard to survive. But in our socialism, people like me, I'm so damn lazy. I cannot survive in capitalism. I have to stay in China. That is the reason I gave up my green card, moved back to China, and I don't want to ever go back to the United States ever again. I got mental abuse there. Here's some fried stuff, some chicken, some meatballs, I don't know the name in English. And here's so many different pickles, garlic pickles, eggplant pickles, kimchi, just pickles. And here is some frozen dumplings, handmade frozen dumplings. It's very good. I bought a few times from there. And here is some snacks, cakes. And here's different sausage. I love sausage. My hometown sausage is very good. Chicken feet price is like $4 for half kilogram. Chicken feet is expensive in China. Pig feet, pig tongues, this kind of unpopular meat in Western country, but in China, the price is higher than pig meat. Well, if you are poor in China, you cannot afford to buy pig feet, pig tongues. It's okay. You can eat normal meat in China. Okay, quite boring, just normal stuff. You have it, we have it, everybody has it. The only difference is the price is lower here. And these are the outside market. At night, after they get after work, they just leave everything here. No one gonna steal. Okay, I'm going back home. It's so cold. My hands was frozen. I forgot to wear gloves. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye. Oh my God, people ask me to show them the grocery.
He also he talked about housing prices. Show them the real estate prices. Real property values declining is not a good sign. Why not brag about that?
You think I don't dare to show you the real estate price in China? Okay, let me brag. Okay, bro, I'm gonna show you my home. You know, my hometown is like the real estate market is really going down, really bad. So like this is my home. When I bought it, it's $60,000, including everything. All the furniture you can see, all the decoration you can see, all included, $60,000. And now if I want to sell it, the price will be lower than that. Okay, the first guest bathroom, and here is you can call it dressing room. I don't use it room at all, basically. Just some clothes here. That's my door. And here is my kitchen. Kitchen here. I'm lazy, so that, of course I'm gonna have dishes in my, here's the view. And here is my living room. Living room, take a look. This is outside. Okay. Second bedroom. This is another bathroom. And this is my bedroom. Dude, if you think you bought an expensive home in the United States or some capitalism system for the expensive price, and you're gonna make money out of the real estate market, good for you. You know, but in long term, many people cannot afford to have a home to live in. But the good thing in China is we can afford home to live in. You must know what is good for the people and what is good for the capitalist oligarchs. You dumb ass dude, okay? No property tax, no house insurance. When you got a home, it's yours till you sell it. You know, home is for you to live in, not to make money. Your home in the United States is not a home anymore. It's an asset for the banks, not for the people. Wake the hell up, dude.
I mean, I don't even like what is there to even react to? What is there even to react to? And this is, oh God, dude. This is Southern California.
Studio lots in the LA River sits one of the city's fastest growing for open space and commercial use. This Forest Lawn Drive is Lorna and her dogs live in a parked RV. She moved here after what she described was the worst during a winter storm. Her RV is one of 2-mile long corridor, 4,000.
I only pay $400 a month because it was a friend of a lot of people pay a lot more than that. And I have an income. I just can't
People
afford.
are renting these rotten RVs, by the way. This is the thing that's funny is it's like this is the new level of slumlord that is developing.
Rent. Yeah, I work full time.
Van lords, as LA City Council member Tracy Park calls them, typically buy RVs at auction, then either drive.
See, van lords. This is it's not like people getting an RV and then and desperation parking it and at least they own the RV. No, it's a slumlord.
At auction, then either drive or get them towed to their location of choice. They're often parked or hooked up to rogue power systems and are in the Wild West with neither landlord nor tenants.
A lot of times the inhabitants of the vehicle don't know the name of the person who they rented it from. They don't have valid contact information.
How do you find tenants?
Craigslist, Airbnb, word of mouth.
He has bought and rented out RV and housed for almost. He owns 15 scattered around town.
Like 1 month I could make 8,000.
Courts have ordered Greg to move his campers, which means they pop up in a new location. Enforcement otherwise is a dead end. Member Park says there's a moratorium on these types of RVs because of a pending, so gets divisively for fears of criminalizing. So she's taking a different approach.
We're working to change our municipal code to cover the sale and leasing of RV on our public streets.
Her motion would require RVs meet stricter standards. It would directly impact Greg Williams' business. She says he's fine with, if that means ending
JW,
homelessness.
interesting. Thank you.
In the shadows of Mount Hollywood, studio lots in the LA River sit.
This is actually like, these people are technically not even homeless. Like, this is the thing that's crazy about this, is it's like, these people have an RV, which is technically, I guess maybe they would be considered homeless. But at least they have like some kind of shelter. This is the modern Hooverville. I want you to understand something, chat. Like, and this is what will make you a leftist, a true leftist or a Marxist. I want you to understand something, and I really want you to accept this and know it and learn it. The rich do not feel human pity or empathy or guilt. I really need you to get this. I really need you to understand this. They're not like us. You look at this and you think, how much worse can it get? And the answer is, as much as you'll let them do. A rich guy could have $1 quadrillion and he wouldn't help you. I need you to understand this. You look at this and you go, oh my God, a van lord, that's gross. How much worse can it get? And the answer is, as much as they can get away with. And I need you to learn this. I need you to stop thinking that rich people are like you and that you just need to explain to them how bad these things are and how they're hurting people, and then they'll change. The only way that a rich person has ever changed is through the power of the state. I need you to understand that. Or other forms of rebellion, okay? They're not ever going to stop. They don't care about you. They think you are a subhuman. They think because they're rich, they deserve everything they can grab. And the fact that they can get away with it is proof of their righteousness. So the only way to make them stop is to stop them. That's what you really need to know. That's what you really need to accept.
Capitalism is pure propaganda and semantics. And I'm not saying this to be controversial. I'm saying this because I'm 35 years old, and it wasn't until this year that I started to actually learn how things work. And as a realtor, I'm embarrassed to admit what I'm about to tell you. The homeowners in China actually have a more close relationship to ownership than Americans do. In China, you don't technically own land, you lease it. You lease it for 70-year periods. And in most cases, that 70-year land lease, it's comparable to what you would pay in a purchase price in a home in America. They finance that over the course of 70 years. They also don't have annual state taxes. This is important. They also don't pay for insurance, which is another really important piece. Under capitalism, you technically own the property, but first of all, if you have a mortgage note, you don't own shit. All right. And even if you pay cash or pay off your mortgage, you still pay annual taxes every year. In addition to that, you also pay insurance. Everyone with a mortgage is required to pay for insurance. And insurance, I'm not even going to get into how much bullshit homeowners insurance is, specifically in the state of Florida. And you might be wondering, if they're not paying for insurance in China, what happens if an earthquake hits or a tsunami, whatever? The government pays for it. Think FEMA, but actually pays out and gives a shit about people. But wait, there's more. Because in China, even though it's only a 70-year land lease, you might be thinking, well, 70 years, sure, that's your lifetime, but what about your kids? You can transfer it to your kids with no administrative fees. So technically that lease starts to look a whole lot more like ownership, doesn't it? Because after 70 years, they don't have to pay shit. Whereas your kids and grandkids here in America, even if you give them a property that's owned outright, if they fail to pay the taxes, it will be taken from them. We've been so propagandized that we don't look beneath the surface. We've been trusting the authority figures in our lives to tell us the truth. And the truth is that those people were lied to by people who had a massive financial incentive to make sure that you never knew the truth. If you guys are interested in a full deep dive on this, where I do a side-by-side comparison with American metros versus Chinese metros, the cost of ownership, and all that good stuff, let me know in the comments. It just takes a lot of effort to put those types of videos together. So if there's interest, I'm more than happy to cite my sources and provide these numbers for you guys, because we need to know this stuff. The more educated we are, the more information we have to move forward in building a system that actually works for us. American capitalism is pure propaganda and semantics. And I'm not saying this to be controversial. I'm saying this because I'm 35 years old, and it wasn't until this year that I started to actually learn.
I think one of the main things that people understand is that the Chinese don't have this because they convinced the rich. I need you to understand this. They didn't convince the rich. They had a movement. It was called the Land Reform Movement of China. Okay? And let's just say that it was a little rough. Okay? It was a little rough for the landlord. All right? I'm not advocating that we necessarily copy this idea. Okay? I'm not saying that we should do a land reform movement in the exact same way that happened in China. I'm only pointing out that the reason why 95% of Chinese people own their homes is because the Communist Party of China directly went after the landlord class and took the land. Okay? I'm not saying we need to do the same thing. We have a modern developed society. We don't need to go after people so directly, but we have the tools to redistribute property, and we have the tools to create, through state action, property that did not previously exist. And obviously the path that China took is not the path that we're going to take, because they had an entirely different circumstance. We are a very rich country. We have control of the global reserve currency. The rich people have their addresses here in Beverly Hills and Manhattan and Miami. Okay? There's nowhere for them to run. So when we raise taxes on them, they just have to pay it. Very important. It's very important to understand the history. And the thing about this is, if you study Chinese history, you will realize what I said about the rich is truer than you could ever understand. If they could, they would buy and sell your children. In fact, libertarians right now in the United States are arguing for that to arguing for that to be illegal again. Libertarians in America, the Mises Institute is one of the most prestigious libertarian right-wing think tanks. They argue that they should be able to buy your children. There it is. In this article, they say that a purely free society will have a flourishing free market in children. They want to bring back auction blocks for kids. They want you to be able to take children, put them on an auction block, and have anybody who could afford to pay buy the kid. This is what they are arguing for. They also believe that parents should be able to starve their children to death if they so choose. Let me see here. Must he have a legal obligation to keep the child alive? And suppose the child is deformed and ill, scarcely human. Does he have a binding legal obligation to maintain the child? And if so, how much of the resources, his time, energy, money, capital, equipment should be legally required to invest to keep the child alive? Where does this obligation stop, and by what criterion? They also believe that children should have the full right to run away. So basically, if you don't understand what libertarians are, basically they are pedophiles that are intellectualizing their beliefs that children should be able to run away from their parents and become vulnerable, that children should be able to be bought at the highest bidder, and that human beings should be bought and sold for the interests of the rich. This is what they argue for. I want you to understand that this is what Republicans want. I'm not kidding. Now, if you're a Republican and you don't know this, it's because you haven't looked into who you actually believe, who you actually support. And if you think I'm crazy, the Mises Institute is very influential in the Trump administration. Very influential in the Trump administration. Who's running it now? Candace Jackson is ahead of the U.S. Department of Education Office for Civil Rights right now. Oh my God. Stop all federal funding of universities. And like this is who we're fighting against. I don't know what else to say. Applying our theory to parents and children, this is what the right wingers are saying. This means that a parent does not have the right to aggress against his children, but also that the parent should not have a legal obligation to feed, clothe, or educate his children, since such obligations would entail positive acts coerced upon the parent and depriving the parent of his rights. What rights, you say? The rights not to feed the child. That is the concept of rights that a right winger wants. They want to live in a society where a parent does not have to educate, feed, or clothe their child. Now, I want to ask you a simple question, chat. If you live in such a society, do you think such a society will be more antisocial and more violent, or less? The parent should have the legal right not to feed the child, i.e., to allow it to die. The law, therefore, may not properly compel the parent to feed a child or keep it alive. This is the logical conclusion of Trump's politics. The rule allows us to solve vexing questions such as, should a parent have a legal right to allow a deformed baby to die by not feeding? The answer is yes, following a fortiori from the larger right to allow any baby, whether deformed or not, to die. Although, as we shall see below, in a libertarian society, the existence of a free baby market will bring such neglect down to a minimum. He's like, why would you let your baby starve? You could sell your baby for profit. This is what Republicans are advocating for. This is what is behind all the shit we're talking about today about, well, should we have K-12 education paid for by the government? Should we have, ultimately, how bad will it get? They want to get to a situation where you are buying and selling your children. They want you to be able to sign a contract to sell your firstborn. I want you to understand that this is what they want, and they want the government to enforce that contract because you made it voluntarily. That's what they think the taxes should be for. I am not exaggerating. This is what right wingers believe. If you ever wondered why is Mike such a strong left winger? Because I've actually read what the right wing really believes. How many of you have actually done that? And when you read what the right wing actually believes, you come to one conclusion. Right winger equals pedophile, racist, literally. And they want to live in hell. And it is not. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at the places where the right has more and more power, it sucks more and more. Right wing places are not good. I want you to understand that there is no end. Because, again, all of this blather is because they don't want to pay a small percentage of their income in taxes to maintain society for the better. That's what it all comes down to. They're saying we should be able to starve children to death rather than have Elon Musk pay a small percentage of his income in taxes. I don't know what else to call that but demonic. They want slaves back. Yes. So I want you to, libertarians believe that we should deregulate drugs and prostitution. They also believe that you should be able to buy and sell children. They also believe the age of consent should not exist or should be lowered. I want you to put all those things together. They want to be able to buy and sell child sex slaves. That's what libertarianism is about. It is the religion of pedophiles and demons. None of this is an exaggeration. This is not a smear. This is I've seen their argument on this. I see their argument on this. Plus A plus B equals C. That is what the right wing is about. And again, I am not telling you this because I am smearing the right. No, I am presenting the right's actual beliefs, but unvarnished. And if you think we could compromise with these people, you're fucking nuts. They have to be destroyed. And there was a certain individual who understood that, and he succeeded. And when he succeeded, that country has now gone on to be the most powerful country in the world. That's just something to think about. It's just something to think about. The more I look at the events all around Operation Paperclip, the more I think the Nazis never lost. Yes, that's correct. The Nazis won. The United States of America adopted Nazi ideology. That's really what happened. The only thing that's different between the US and Nazi Germany is that Nazi Germany fixated on Jews. The United States has lost its fixation on Jews and shifted it to other marginalized groups. All right, let's talk about the seizure of this Venezuelan ship.
The Trump White House called themselves the anti-war ticket so cynically, using the Biden administration's support for genocide in their favor. I mean, look, it's a political campaign. Their willingness to lie on the campaign trail to achieve power is historic and almost unprecedented, and it's the fault of the Democrats for being unable to call it out because it's such a brazen lie.
I don't mean to contradict you, but this.
Well, by the way, chat, I mean, the Democrats can't call it out because they agree with it. The Democrats aren't calling out what's going on in Venezuela because they agree with it. The Democrats can't call out what's going on with Gaza because they agree with it. The Democrats can't call out what he's doing with the new Cold War with China because they agree with it. Why would they call out something they agree with? Now, the American people don't agree with it. The American people don't want to go to war with China. The American people don't want to go to war with Venezuela. The American people do not support the genocide in Gaza. But we don't live in a democracy. We live in an oligarchy.
Do you disagree with President Trump's ultimate goal of regime change in Venezuela?
Look, the bottom line is President Trump throws out so many different things in so many different ways. You don't even know what the heck he's talking about. You know, obviously, if Maduro would just flee on his own, everyone would like that. But we don't know what the heck he's up to when he talks about that. So it's very, very, you cannot say, I endorse this, I endorse that, when Trump is all over the lot, not very specific, and very worrisome at how far he might escalate.
Do you disagree with President Trump's ultimate goal of regime change in Venezuela?
Look, the bottom line is President Trump throws out so many different things in so many different ways. You don't even know what the heck he's talking about. You know, obviously, if Maduro would just flee on his own, everyone would like that. But we don't know what the heck he's up to when he talks about that. So it's very, very, you cannot say, I endorse this, I endorse.
Let me just, for Americans to understand, I want you to understand, who the fuck are you to say who should leave what government and what country? Who the fuck are you? Who died and elected you king of the fucking world? I want you to actually articulate what Venezuela has done to the United States of America that requires us to destroy their country. It's always been like that. No, it isn't. It's only been that since Harry Truman. United States of America adopted the Truman Doctrine, which is the doctrine of we get to interfere with every country when we feel like it. FDR didn't have that policy. We had what was called the good neighbor policy, which is we're going to treat people as sovereign and we're going to be a good neighbor. It was the Truman Doctrine that overturned America's tradition. You know, we had the Monroe Doctrine, but that gave way. The Smedley Butler shit was an extension of the Monroe Doctrine and America's imperialism throughout Latin America. But then FDR proposed the Good Neighbor Doctrine, which overturned that, and then Truman reasserted the Monroe Doctrine with the Truman Doctrine, which is an expand. Basically, we're going to do the Monroe Doctrine, except we're going to expand it to the whole world. And we're going to say, whatever your government is of a form that we don't like, America reserves the right to intervene in your internal affairs. That's the Truman Doctrine. And I'm saying I don't agree with it and it should be revoked.
That when Trump is all over the lot, not very specific and very worrisome at how.
I mean, so that's the reality. The problem with Emma's politics is that she talks about a Democratic Party that doesn't exist, which is a party that is an opposition party to the Republicans. a party that has a coherent center-left agenda, a party that is trying to advance incremental progress through well-reasoned and well-reinforced political compromises that have been tested and proven to be effective around the world. And the Democratic Party is trying to establish some sort of technocratic, reformist development of the United States. That's not true. I mean, it's just not. The Democratic Party that she imagines does not exist. And that's kind of the problem. You want to talk about how the Republicans are bad, but they literally, we don't have two parties. We have one party with two names. Maybe 80, I would say not about 95 Democrats in Congress are actually a resistance to Trump. The majority of the Democrats are on Trump's side on every major important issue. That's the reality.
This is why the Democrats can't be a pro-war party, because the Republicans do run on this. Richard Nixon ran on a secret plan to end the Vietnam War, and then won the '68 election based on that. I would, it would be nice if the Democrats, learn from that.
While collaborating with opposition forces to continue the war.
Yep.
So, which is very, very eerily similar to the Trump administration having
opposition forces to continue the war. She means the North Vietnamese. Is that what she's saying? She's calling them opposition force. Talk about the Vietnamese government that was being invaded. Yes, they're right. Nixon did send secret envoys illegally to the North Vietnamese and said, hey, don't sign a peace deal because I'll give you a better one. That is true. That was treason. And LBJ knew about it and didn't say anything. So what do you want me to say? Again, the Democrats, pathetic fucking losers, didn't expose treason because it would have made it uncomfortable.
Meetings with Netanyahu as Netanyahu was, dog walking Biden all over the place.
Yeah, and then getting into the Republicans getting into power, and then expanding the war into different neighbors. Like, let's fire a missile at Iran.
Yes,
and now Iran will come.
I think he spoke to Dragon Army. You might be right. It might have been the South Vietnamese, which is our puppets. Hold on. Let me bring this
into
up.
this story. Don't you worry. The ever-present boogeyman for the neocons. Even though we are in the Western Hemisphere and Trump sees himself as some sort of, late 19th century leader that wants to engage in conquest within our backyard. And
Teddy Roosevelt or something.
Yeah. But even like we've done this via covert actions for the last 100 years or so. This is Trump just being expressly open about it and being a brute, which is one of his defining qualities. So since September, just a reminder, we've launched dozens of strikes on boats that the administration claims are drug runners and have provided zero evidence for that. We've killed over 80 people off the coast of Venezuela. We have now 15,000 troops in the region. This is the largest.
All right, this is what I was referring to. Thank you, Dragon Army, for correcting me. He was talking to the South Vietnamese puppets. When a candidate conspired with a foreign power to win an election. Hey, by the way, that happened again. It's called Israel. Israel and Trump did the same thing. Johnson is his aide. The gambit. Okay. Haldeman, 42, was Nixon's campaign chief of staff, a devoted political adjunct since the 50s. In October 1968, the two men connected on what became known as the Chenault affair. Nixon gave Haldeman his orders: find ways to sabotage Johnson's plans to stage productive peace talks so that a frustrated American electorate would turn to the Republicans as their only hope to end the war. The gambit worked, and the Chenault affair, named for Anna Chenault, the Republican, doyen and fundraiser who became Nixon's back channel to the South Vietnamese government, lingered as a diplomatic and political whodunit for decades afterward. They hesitated to expose it because they had no proof of Nixon personally directed or countenanced her actions. It wasn't until 2007, when the Nixon Presidential Library finally opened Haldeman's notes to the public, that I stumbled upon a smoking gun in the course of conducting research for my biography of Nixon. 4 pages of notes his brush-cut aide had scrawled late in October evening in 1968. Keep Anna Chenault working on SVN, Haldeman wrote, as Nixon barked orders into the phone. They were out to monkey wrench Johnson's election eve initiative, Nixon said, and it worked. Again, treason not exposed, not punished. These people should have been literally hung for treason.
Troop buildup in that area in the 21st century. We flew fighter jets into Venezuelan airspace the other day. And yesterday, the U.S. seized an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. This tanker had previously been the subject of U.S. sanctions. It was under another name because the U.S. claimed it was shipping oil to Iran, which, if that's the case, Venezuela has the right to sell its oil to whoever they want, but not under the sanctions regime, where we decide and we freeze their assets and we use the leverage of the United States to make it very difficult for Venezuela to have state control over their resources here and trade with who they want. So because of this, yeah.
And if destroying their oil industry leads to a bunch of people having to leave their country, and then the right wing can use that to use anti-immigrant sentiment to get into power, then that's just an extra little side benefit.
It's a self-licking ice cream cone, to use a phrase that Sam likes to deploy. But here's the president, Donald Trump, asked by a reporter yesterday about his taking of this oil tanker.
It's unfortunate what happened. I mean, I know exactly what happened. It kind of started a little bit, but we'll see if we can put it out.
We're interested in the seizure of this tanker. Well, what happens to the oil on that ship?
Well, we keep it, I guess.
Where does it go? What port does it go to?
Well, you have to follow the tanker. You know, you're a good newsman. Just follow the tanker.
Do you know where it's going?
Follow it. Get a helicopter. Follow the tanker.
Is it sure it's going to?
But we're gonna. I assume we're gonna keep the oil.
All right, just keep the oil. Just keep the oil.
He's not even awake.
It's good for the history books, though, just how clear this is going to be.
That is, again, we've talked about this. The benefit of Trump being such a dumbass is that he says all of the quiet things out loud. Remember when he...
By the way, and? So he says the quiet part out loud. So what? And? Now what? We giggle. We laugh. We scoff. Look how dumb he is, we say. He's dumb? What's the proof that he's fucking dumb? It seems like it's working to me. Seems like he's getting away with it scot-free, and your Democrat rat fucks, Zohran Mamdani, kept in office. It's important to understand how bad of a decision this is. Zohran Mamdani said, oh, they're going to help me with my initiatives if I don't primary Hakeem Jeffries. I mean, the naivete of this decision is unbelievable. Like, it's one of those things that really worries me about Zohran. But I guess he's got to touch the stove. He's got to experience the fact that they're going to fuck you. He's got to experience it himself. Everybody has to experience the fact that the rich are not going to compromise. He's got to experience it. It's a fucking annoying, frustrating to watch.
He maybe accidentally revealed that the death toll in Gaza was hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
By saying that count.
Or him just saying, like, we need to keep Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan so we can keep an eye on the Chinese.
Yeah, right.
Do you think Trump is just trying to push Venezuela to attack one of our ships or planes? Obviously. The Venezuelans have adopted they're going to be a pillow mentality, which is they're just going to take punches and they're not going to retaliate. And so now Trump has escalated to, we're going to try to destroy your economy by stealing your property, completely in contradiction of American and international law, with no fucking right to do so. He's basically putting the Venezuelans in a position of either you are a state or you're not. Either you're going to take these infinite humiliations, fatal undermining of your economy, which will starve your people out, or you'll be forced to fight. They gave him promises for tomorrow, for guarantees today. Yes, that's how you know you're being suckered. If you are having a transactional relationship with somebody and you're the one who performs everything up front, you've just been scammed. If you have a relationship that's based on trust, that's been built over years, and you decide to do a sequence where you perform first based on promises, that's one thing. But if you're having a transactional relationship where you do all the performing up front and then later they're going to deliver for you, you just got... Transactional relationships should be done at the same time, equal exchange, contemporaneously with each other. It should be, I hand you an apple, you hand me $5. If I hand you the apple and you walk the fuck out and say, oh, I'll pay you later, you just got robbed an apple. And that's what happened to Zohran Mamdani. And I guess we'll see. If Hakeem Jeffries, political player, helps deliver free childcare for New Yorkers. I'm going to hold my breath.
Okay, thank you. These are the behind the scenes conversations that aren't like, this is about American freedom, baby.
Yeah, that's the stuff like an author like Stephen Kinzer would have to go into the paragraphs, like reading between the lines.
Yes, exactly. And just a reminder, when Trump was engaging in his racist screed against Somali Americans and Somalis the other day, he said, quote, "The only thing they're good for is going after ships." Less than a month ago, Iran seized this tanker, this Marshall Islands flag tanker. So it has a relationship with the U.S., and they did so in Gulf waters. And this is what the U.S. Central Command's press release in November said about such an action. Just scroll down. I think it's like the third paragraph here. Iran's use of military forces to conduct an armed boarding and seizure of a commercial vessel in international waters constitutes a blatant violation of international law, undermining freedom of navigation and the free flow of commerce. We call on Iran to articulate to the international community the legal basis for its actions. This is the United States
International law? Who's citing international law all of a sudden? The thing that we just openly say we're not subject to that?
The Trump administration won't... Biden doesn't follow international law.
No,
but the Trump administration, no president does. The Trump
By the way, I'm not saying this to be. By the way, I'm not criticizing Zoran's decision to endorse Jeffries because I think that he's a big sellout and he sucks or whatever. I think it's called a mistake. I need you to be okay with people that you like making mistakes without it suddenly causing you to catastrophize. I need you to understand that people that you like will make mistakes. You're allowed to get angry at them for making mistakes. But you also need to stop doing splitting. You're doing very BPD type behaviors, I noticed online, where it's like if somebody does something that you don't like, you then reconceptualize everything you think about them as bad. It's splitting. It's mentally ill. You need to learn how to like go, I think he made a mistake and it's a blunder and it's going to hurt. Without going like, and it turns out he was all secretly a sellout the whole time, and everything he does is stupid, and he's an idiot, and I hate him. And it's like, bro, calm down. You're allowed to have a tactical disagreement. This is what makes me me. What makes Mike from PA, what separates me from like the Majority Report or Hassan or other guys is I have my own conception of the Democratic Party. And my conception of the Democratic Party is we use it when we can, but the establishment is 100% against us and hates our guts and wants to destroy us. And we will, and the only way they'll ever capitulate is if we come from a position of strength and they have no choice. Other people disagree with me. They think that we could put pressure on them and then they'll be persuaded and blah, 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 blah. I do not agree with that. Now, if it turns out that they're right, great. I'll reevaluate how I think about Hakeem Jeffries. But in my experience and what I have known and what I have studied and what I have seen from Hakeem Jeffries and what he has said over the years have led me to believe he can never be trusted and that he is an anti-leftist first. That is his primary reason for being in politics, is opposition to a real left in America and serving the interests of hedge funds. That's why Hakeem Jeffries is where he is. So I'm not going to expect him to like suddenly become pushed to the left because of a vague primary threat. That may happen in 4 years now or 3 years now. And I think the main problem I have with Corbyn and Bernie and AOC and Zoran is that the soft left, it lacks self-confidence. They lack the belief that they could really win. And they are mentally imprisoned to the idea that they have to work with liberals. They don't really believe that they could overtake liberalism. That is the mental prison that we're now laboring in, is we have a bunch of people that have been convinced that they can't win that hard. You think Trump reclassifying marijuana is an attempt to win over popularity? Oh God, don't even, I'm going to talk about that later, but I'm saving it because I don't want to melt down at 9 a.m. I want to melt down at like 11 a.m. Can I melt down at 10:30 a.m. as opposed to 9 a.m.? Now, I am always going to be on the left flank of the whatever the electoral coalition is. I want to constantly be pushing more to the left, but I want to remain part of the electoral program because guess what, chat? That's what the masses are fixated on. So if you care about getting regular people to care about your shit, you talk about the things that everybody talks about, which is electoral politics. Whether you like it or not, that's the way that people conceptualize politics, is through electoral politics. The other stuff is very important. It's just I am where the masses are, and I want to be on the very left. Whatever the left flank is, I'm going to be pulling on it. And I want to be connected to it. I don't want to be alienated from it, because then we're alienated from regular people. And that is a sign of failure and lifestyleism.
Administration doesn't even follow U.S. law. Right. I mean, just to remind people, like, the legal basis for these attacks.
In the New York City DSA, many of our membership is wondering, how do we have a coherent electoral program where electors actually listen to membership? Well, the first thing is you've got an elite clique in NYDSA, and their interests may not coincide with the movement, the interests of socialism. That's kind of the first thing that immediately strikes me is there is a problem of elitism, but not in a good way, in a like self-interested, opportunistic way. And the other thing is the interests of Zohran Mamdani are not the interests of socialism. And I think there's a lot of fan energy in New York City DSA as well, which, you know, it's fine if that's what you are and you're a regular voter or supporter, but if you're in DSA, you should be a little bit more mature than that.
On these boats and this escalation with Venezuela, it's so illegal. It's so unbelievably illegal. Congress has the power to declare war. They have not done so with Venezuela. The Trump administration is trying to use the 2001 and 2002 authorizations for the use of military force, which need to be repealed because they are so immensely broad. It basically gave the executive branch and the Bush administration the ability to kill people, anybody they deemed as terrorists, within the scope of responding to 9/11, and then, of course, you know, what ended up being our illegal invasion of Iraq. The idea that the administration can claim that these attacks on these boats and our escalation with Venezuela is somehow covered under the authorizations for the use of military force that were in response to 9/11 is so laughable on its face. That's why they're trying to bring Iran into the conversation, because they are stretching the truth so broadly that they need to find a Middle Eastern boogeyman to justify their attempts to provoke Venezuela into responding. And by the way, we talked about this with Iran. Iran and Venezuela, their restraint is what's keeping us from these horrific, horrific wars. Like the fact that Iran didn't respond more robustly to the United States bombing them earlier this year is part of why we're in this situation. We are the bully. We're the belligerent actor here. We're the ones causing unrest across the globe. And we're not even touching on the genocide that we're funding.
It's, yeah, I mean, all this stuff about drugs or Iran and terrorists, those are just the buzzwords that the people who want to unholster their guns know they need to activate in order to unholster them.
Yep.
So whatever they need. And honestly, it's a type of, such a great lie that it should lead to a type of almost like revolutionary anger. The way that these people cite like the tens of thousands of opioid and stuff deaths that have done because we have not addressed that as a public health crisis, but instead like something that needs, again, to send cowboys across the world to protect people. No, we've let off the billionaires who were like the Sacklers and stuff.
Should we execute the Sacklers in the town square, or is it because if they're wealthy and you know, donate to museums in New York City, that doesn't mean that they deserve summary execution?
They're not tied to anything that we want to overthrow or control, so it's not relevant. And so they that's the thing, is they don't care about protecting women's sports. They don't care about your uncle that died from a drug overdose. They don't give a fuck about it, except as a warrant for them to unholster their guns and point at who they already wanted to point at.
And a good example.
Well, and by the way, it's not just that they want to shoot guns because shooting guns is fun, and murdering people is fun, although that is a large motivator for the many of the people that are involved. The reason why they're doing that, chat, and this is very important that you understand this, the reason why they are doing this is because they want to steal the oil.
Example of this is Maria Corina Machado. She is the latest figurehead that the United States is trying to push to be the leader of Venezuela. She's been a longtime supporter of violent regime change in Venezuela. She supported these far-right protests in 2014 that left many people dead. She has advocated for United States sanctions on her own people, immiserating them. She wrote to Netanyahu a few years ago asking for help overthrowing Maduro. And she's just been in the pocket of U.S. NGOs and hawks like Marco Rubio for years and years. So she's been forced into hiding because there's an arrest warrant out for her in Venezuela. she, according to some reports, seemingly with the help of the United States, jetted off to Norway to see my homeland here and accept her Nobel Peace Prize award. And as she supports basically military action against her own population.
I have a book list in my Discord.
So for peace,
an invasion to empower herself.
This is what she had to say in Norway just a few hours ago.
Hello, David Rasmus on Swedish radio. Yesterday, the US seized a ship outside the coast of Venezuela. Would you welcome a US military intervention in Venezuela?
Look, some people talk about invasion in Venezuela, the threat of an invasion in Venezuela, and I answered, Venezuela has been already invaded. We have the Russian agents, we have the Iranian agents, we have terrorist groups such as Hezbollah, Hamas, operating freely in accordance with the regime.
Just
F the Nobel Prize forever, man.
I know.
Really forever.
It's done. It's done. I mean, well,
What a
should have been
joke.
done when we gave it to Kissinger.
Or Obama.
Or Obama, even.
What a joke.
What a joke. Yeah. I mean, Hezbollah. It's Hezbollah. It just
Hamas is even crazier.
Right. And
everyone getting along there.
And Hezbollah has left. They have some internationality.
Yes.
To them whatsoever.
Yeah. Right. It's just like
Hamas has a tunnel that goes all the way over.
Hamas is a tunnel to Venezuela from Gaza. But it's just like, I mean, how transparent do you have to be? Just, I'm going to hit every one of them. I'm going to hit every one of them. It's like when we're in a conversation with somebody and you know they're sucking up to you.
Yeah, are you sure, Ms. Machado, are you sure North Korea is in there too?
Right. But don't worry, folks. We have the Democrats, the leader of the Democrats in the Senate. He's going to stand up against this incredibly illegal, obvious, insane move by the Trump administration trying to impose regime change in Venezuela, start a war with Venezuela. Chuck Schumer is on it. He's on it, folks. He is going to draw a distinction. You know, when he was really mad at Trump for doing a side deal with Iran? No side deals.
Diplomacy to go against shooting missiles?
No diplomacy. We want more escalation with Iran, was his message in response to what the Trump administration
Trump
back in June.
Yeah, not wanting to talk to Iran instead of sending missiles at him.
Yeah. Here he is. This is when Jake Tapper asked him expressly, do you support regime change? Chuck is gonna draw a distinction between the Democrats and Trump.
Do you disagree with President Trump's ultimate goal of regime change in Venezuela?
Look, the bottom line is President Trump throws out so many different things in so many different ways. You don't even know what the heck he's talking about. You know,
can you pause it? You know, it's your job to tell the American public.
I mean, it's just the question you have to ask yourself is not why is Chuck Schumer so incompetent? The question you should be asking yourself is why do Democratic senators want Chuck Schumer as their leader? Why do Democratic senators want Chuck Schumer as their leader? Like, why don't Democratic senators want a leader? And why isn't there a Democratic senator who is a leader, who commands attention, who commands the bully pulpit, who commands donor and base energy? Why don't they want somebody like that? Why are there no senators like that? And like, that is the problem. And I think the problem I have with TYT politics or, you know, lib left politics is they're not asking that question. Because when they hyper focus on one or two convenient enemies, that tranquilizes you from dealing with the greater problem, which is why are Democratic senators uninterested in leadership in their caucus? Why do they want somebody with a 20% approval rating in the country leading their caucus? Because ultimately he serves the same benefactors as the Republicans while being an immovable punching bag and scapegoat so Dems can go, well, he's the leader, shrug. Exactly. They're paid to
what he's doing and what he's talking about. Yeah. Not to say our political opponent, I can't even define what is bad about what he wants to do. It's just the fact that he does a bunch of different things. Are you joking?
There's any staffers listening to this, print this phrase out. Democrats or Republicans think you're lazy. Democrats think you're stupid. And make sure your boss doesn't play into the latter thing, because they always do. They think we can follow what Trump's doing. He's murdering people in the Caribbean to try to provoke a war, you idiot.
It's insane.
How infantile.
But isn't that? But it's like the Iran thing. No, no side deals. He does this. He does. Just stand in opposition to this aggression. It's just we'll keep going.
This is Chuck Schumer, who was against the Iran deal.
Yeah.
Out so many different things in so many different ways. You don't even know what the heck he's talking about. Obviously, if Maduro would just flee on his own, everyone would like that. But we don't know what the heck he's up to when he talks about that. So it's very, very, you cannot say, I endorse this, I endorse that, when Trump is all over the lot, not very specific, and very worrisome at how far he might escalate.
All over the lot was the same phrase he used in that video I talked about. The problem with Trump is not the substance of his actions. It's that he's confusing Chuck. What more do I need to say?
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.
Yeah, this was Trump is anti-war narrative falls apart spectacularly. And I think that this is kind of the essence of where we need to go is we need a Democratic Party that is actually capable of saying anything against Trump. Like, how are we 12 years in and they haven't figured it out? All right, chat, let's, if you are a Washington chatter, hello? YouTube, are you okay? Schumer's favorability goes to historic lows again. Thank you, Jules. Chuck Schumer is at 17% favorable, 66% unfavorable. He's at 38% favorable with Democrats, 72% unfavorable with independents. He's unfavorable with black people, white people. Like this, this is unbelievable. It'd be one thing for him to be unpopular, but actually delivering a lot of ideological wins for us. Like the turtle Mitch McConnell does for the Republicans. He delivers them win after win after win. He's hated by the base because Republicans don't know what their party actually stands for. But at least he's delivering the ideological victories they want, right? Conservatives love what he actually delivers. The grassroots are idiots because what he delivers is exactly what the Republican Party stands for openly and brazenly. But they hate him because it's part of how they solve their cognitive dissonance of, man, I really hate all the policies the Republican Party passes. It must be Mitch McConnell's fault. Democrats relieve Epstein estate photos showing Donald Trump, Bill Clinton. Amazing. All right, let's keep talking about the Venezuela shit.
In a major escalation, U.S. troops seized an oil tanker off the coast.
What the fuck happened? Is YouTube okay?
In a major escalation, U.S. troops seized an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela a day after U.S. fighter jets flew over the Gulf of Venezuela, the closest the U.S. has come to the country's airspace. Attorney General Pam Bondi released videos showing U.S. forces rappelling from helicopters and pointing weapons at sailors. Bondi claimed the tanker had been used to transport sanctioned oil from Venezuela and Iran. President Trump confirmed the raid while speaking with reporters at the White House.
As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, a large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually. And other things are happening, so you'll be seeing that later, and you'll be talking about that later with some other people.
We're interested in the seizure of this tanker. Well, what happens to the oil on this ship?
Well, we keep it, I guess.
Where does it go? What port does it go to?
Well, you have to follow the tanker. You're a good newsman. Just follow the tanker.
Do you know where it's going?
Follow it. Get a helicopter. Follow the tanker.
Is it true it's going to?
But I assume we're going to keep the oil.
The Venezuelan government denounced the action, calling it blatant theft and an act of international piracy. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro spoke in Caracas Wednesday.
Anyone who wants Venezuelan oil must respect the law, the Constitution, and national sovereignty, and get down to producing, invest, and sell our oil. Venezuela, an oil colony? Never again. Neither a colony nor slaves.
He also started singing, "Don't worry, be happy."
I don't think Maduro is doing too hot. I don't think Maduro is too hot.
The U.S. seizure of the oil tanker comes as the Pentagon ramps up its military buildup in the Caribbean ahead of possible strikes on Venezuela. Since September, the U.S. has carried out more than 20 deadly strikes on alleged drug boats in the Caribbean and the Pacific, though they've never offered evidence. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to the right-wing Venezuelan opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado. On Tuesday night, hundreds of protesters marched in Oslo to condemn the selection of Machado, who supported Trump's threats against the Venezuelan government. In October, she dedicated the Peace Prize to President Trump. Machado did not attend the prize ceremony on Wednesday, but later appeared in Oslo waving to supporters from the balcony of her hotel. She spoke at the Norwegian parliament today. CNN reports the United States gave her support to travel to Oslo from Venezuela, where she'd been in hiding. She apparently last step flew from Bangor, Maine, to Oslo.
We're joined by Alejandro Velasco, associate professor at New York University, where he's a historian of modern Latin America. Velasco is a former executive director of NACLA Report on the Americas and the author of Barrio Rising, Urban Popular Politics and the Making of Modern Venezuela. He was born and raised in Venezuela. Welcome back to the show, Alejandro. So if you could comment on these latest developments, the U.S. Coming the closest it has to invading Venezuela's airspace, and then also Machado receiving the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, no, for sure. But on the one hand, you have to think of it as an escalation on two fronts. The most apparent front, of course, is the military escalation, even though they're calling it a legal maneuver, more of a high sea stakes kind of operation. In fact, the United States has amassed the greatest number of troops in the 21st century in the Caribbean. And so this absolutely escalates this kind of war of chicken with the Venezuelan government. But it's also, in some ways, an escalation of illegality. The United States has in the past seized Venezuelan assets and now controls millions of Venezuelan Citgo assets that it is essentially kidnapped for ransom in the United States. The UK has also held Venezuelan gold in the wake of 2019's crisis that saw Juan Guaido become sort of interim president, self-proclaimed. And so that kind of escalation is very significant and worrisome. It's been interesting that the Venezuelan government's reaction has been really disciplined. They've not fallen into the trap of trying to be goaded into some kind of response that would surely bring greater military action on the part of the United States. Now, on the other hand, of course, you have the Maria Corina Machado ceremony. She had said that she would not leave Venezuela until the...
Somebody said Graham Plattner would be like supporting it. Like, guys, if you're gonna keep bringing up, hey, Bad Empanada fans, if you're gonna keep bringing up Graham Plattner, can you at least not lie about the guy? Like, if you're gonna constantly fixate on this one candidate because he's a veteran, which like 80, there's like almost half the Democrats are fucking veterans, and you're gonna focus on this one guy because he's a veteran who says he doesn't like the war in Venezuela. That's why you hate him so much. It's like a weird fixation where it's like this guy is better than most of the other Democrats. Therefore, the fact that he is a veteran, I've got to trash him even more because he's not a Zionist. But if he was a Zionist like every other Democrat practically is, you wouldn't be talking about him every day. 25 years ago, Chuck Schumer and Susan Collins both voted to send me and my friends to kill and die in Iraq. Apparently, neither of them have learned a thing. Regime change didn't work in Iraq, and it won't work in Venezuela. Here he is saying Iraq is bad, but also don't attack Venezuela. He's not saying, oh, it didn't work, therefore it's bad. He's saying, I don't support it. Like, if you're going to attack the guy, at least get it right. Like, I'm about to be negatively polarized into outright supporting Graham Plattner more because of the stupidity of people like Bad Empanada. Like, he's almost negatively polarizing me into supporting him. Like, are you okay? Back to talking about how we need to fight and organize to stop the Venezuelan war.
final battle is won. And so now the question is, will she be able to return, or will she run the fate of many Venezuelan politicians in the opposition who've, lived out their promise in exile?
But was she under a travel ban? She'd apparently not seen her own children. Her daughter received the prize in her stead. She had not seen the kids for a year or possibly two. What kind of ban was she under?
So the Venezuelan government had an arrest warrant on her. And so they had alleged that she had violated campaign laws, political actions as well. And so certainly she was under hiding. And of course, her concern was if she was going to be detained, then she might suffer the consequences of torture or other kinds of violations. But of course, her profile is so significant, it's so high profile that it's also somewhat far-fetched to imagine that the Venezuelan government would in fact detain her, rather than in fact see what she's doing now, which is to leave.
Let me play Corina Machado speaking at the Norwegian Parliament today.
I am very hopeful Venezuela will be free, and we will turn a country into a beacon of hope, an opportunity of democracy. And we will welcome not only the Venezuelans that have been forced to flee, but citizens from all over the world that will find a refuge, as Venezuela used to be decades ago.
On Tuesday night, hundreds of protesters marched in Oslo to condemn the selection of Machado for the Nobel Peace Prize because she supported Trump's threats against Venezuela. In October, she dedicated the Peace Prize to Trump. This is Lina Alvarez of the Norwegian Solidarity Committee for Latin America in Oslo.
Estamos aquí en una demostración.
We are here at a demonstration organized together with a broad alliance of Norwegian solidarity and peace organizations, where we are highlighting that the Nobel Prize is being used to legitimize military intervention. This year's Nobel Prize winner has not distanced herself from the interventions and the attacks we are seeing in the Caribbean, and we are stating that this clearly breaks with Alfred Nobel's will.
So, Professor Velasco, if you can comment on this, and then talk about this tanker. President Trump boasted it's the largest tanker ever seized.
Yeah, it's hard to parse the Nobel Prize Committee's selection and then how they have proceeded over the last few weeks since the announcement. The history of the Nobel Prize being awarded to politicians and opposition politicians is, let's just say, not a very storied one. More recently, of course, you have Barack Obama, who had been awarded the prize, and before that, Aung San Suu Kyi, the Burmese politician. And at the time, they said that these were more aspirational awards for hopefully what would come if they, in fact, reached the kind of power that they wanted. But in both of those cases, of course, we did not see peace. We saw, in the case of, unfortunately, of Obama, war, and of Aung San Suu Kyi, an authoritarian turn. So part of the question here is, why would the Nobel Prize Committee take another chance on an opposition politician who has been so vocal in requesting and demanding an armed intervention of her country? Even, of course, as on the other hand, she would say,
the Peace Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize has been completely perverted. It always was flawed. But now it's just a complete joke. The Obama award made it a joke.
Well, we want
the Kissinger shit too, but
peace, and we want democracy. This is what the Norwegians, the prime minister conversation was like. So that's on the one hand. What is going on with the Norwegians who have in the past tried to broker some kind of negotiation with the Venezuelan government? But in terms, of course, of the oil question, it's a kind of a two-handed approach. You have this seeming carrot of we seek peace and bringing the Norwegians along, but on the other hand, we're seizing ships. We are launching military aircraft, fighter jets, right literally off the coast of Venezuela, all in an effort to try to goad the Venezuelan government to a kind of misstep that would then justify some military intervention.
But what do we know about this ship? The U.S. officials, of course, say the ship had been previously linked to the smuggling of Iranian oil. The final destination of the ship was indeed Asia. Can you talk about the claim that the Venezuelan state U.S.-owned oil company, PDVSA, is part of a global black market network?
So Venezuela's oil, and PDVSA in particular, has been sanctioned since the first Trump administration. And those, as we call sectoral sanctions, are part of a maximum pressure campaign on the part of the U.S. to try to force the Venezuelan government out of power. They, of course, withstood that pressure.
Somebody finally said it. Sanctioned by the United States. Oh, okay. So the sanctions are not there because they're based off of anything concrete. The sanctions are there because the United States subjectively wants to steal their oil.
Sure. But it does mean that Venezuelan oil and Venezuelan oil interests and assets abroad as well as domestically are under threat. The paradox here is that Venezuela continues to sell oil to the United States. So on the one hand, we have the seizure of a tanker and then other tankers that are just finding their way to the United States by way of licenses to be sold in the U.S. market. And so, part of this is this larger narrative of Venezuelan narco-terrorism and this axis between Iran and Venezuela and Cuba. But on the other hand, you have the continuation of politics as normal. So it's hard, extremely difficult to parse what the actual intentions are.
So let's talk about
the reason why the Venezuelans are trying to sell oil to the United States is because the Venezuelan oil was dependent upon American infrastructure. Like that was the deal. Like America had the refining infrastructure and Venezuela would sell them the crude oil. And the United States would make money off Venezuelan crude oil because they had the infrastructure necessary in order to refine it. So Venezuela's best customer for its oil is the U.S.
Venezuela, having the world's largest oil reserves, it's under threat from the United States, and followed by Colombia. On Wednesday, President Trump threatened Colombian President Petro.
Colombia is producing a lot of drugs. They have cocaine factories that they make cocaine, as you know, and they sell it right into the United States. So he better wise up, or he'll be next. He'll be next, too. And I hope he's listening. He's going to be next.
I hope he's listening, he says about Petro. He is going to be next. He also brought in narco trafficking. It's important to note that in this past week, he pardoned a major narco trafficker, right? The former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was sentenced in a U.S. court to 45 years in prison, served about a year of that, accused of bringing in, using all the levers of the Honduran state, military, police, helping to facilitate 400 tons of cocaine into the United States. So talk about Colombia. And
I mean, Colombia has been nothing if not a stable partner for the United States in terms of drug interdiction. It continues to be a major oil drug producer and exporter, although Ecuador has now become far more. And of course, Ecuador has a friendly ally to the Trump administration as president currently, and so they're not talking about Ecuador. But what this demonstrates is that it's certainly on the part of Trump, but also on the part of Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, and others in the U.S. government, Venezuela is not the only target. It's other Latin American governments, and questions about narco-terrorism are really subterfuge claims, in fact, to get rid of leftist governments in the region. Right? This is what we see with Colombia. We've seen other threats to Mexico as well, which is a leftist government as well. So this has a lot to do with ideology, despite the claims that it's impact about drugs.
Before you go, I wanted to ask you about what is a national story, but also has international significance. This Miami mayoral race, Florida voters electing a Democratic mayor and the first woman, for the first time, a Democratic mayor in 30 years. In a stunning upset, the former county commissioner Eileen Higgins received about 59% of the vote, defeating the Cuban-born Republican Emilio Gonzalez, who'd been endorsed by Trump. How does this relate to what we're seeing now? Trump reportedly has been extremely affected by these two races this week. One was her upset victory, and another, a smaller race in Georgia, in a Trump region. State legislator, Democrat, won this time around. But what about Miami?
It's massive, and especially in the worldview of Trump and his ties to Florida in particular, but his sense that Florida was now in the bag for Trump, and this tremendous upset, and it wasn't even close, right? And we're talking massive, margin, suggests that perhaps the message, the bellicose message that the Cuban American community, most of the Cuban American community in South Florida.
Bring up Rubio in this, the Secretary of State, and his role and what's happening. Cuban American from Miami.
Yes, this sort of staid Cold War era discourse being brought up again. What it suggests is that it's perhaps run a bit of its course, and the interests of.
Are we expecting a blue wave come the midterms? I mean, all the evidence is that Donald Trump is very unpopular. And whenever I talk to a capitalist, lately the way capitalists are talking. One of the things that I do lately is whenever I'm talking to a capitalist, I'm always like, they're always like, oh, AI is going to destroy the labor market and it's going to make everybody poor. And I'm like, that's not true. Well, what if the robots are doing all the work? Why don't we just distribute it? Why would it all go to Elon Musk? That doesn't make any sense. They're like, oh yeah, that's a dreamer. Oh yeah. And I'm like, no, it's not a dreamer. There's counterparts to the United States called the Communist Party of China. And if the United States collapses because the vast majority of the masses are ruined by AI, the United States will fail. It's not, you can think that AI is going to do a bunch of jobs that regular people do all you want. Even if that's the case, how we determine who gets what is a political decision, not a market inevitability. So I personally think AI is a bubble, but even if AI isn't a bubble, if robots start getting spammed out to do every task, all we need is to grab the fucking billionaires and gently persuade them that it should be operated for the good of all humanity. If we could spam out 1 million robots that could do all shitty manual labor, and they just started walking around picking up trash and washing the streets and fixing potholes. Let's just imagine this. Imagine a locust swarm of manual labor robots just going around fixing up shit. Would that be better if it was owned by Elon Musk and he became a quadrillionaire? I don't think so. Mike, completely unrelated story. Oh, yeah. China has executed senior banker Bai Tianhu for taking 1.1 billion yuan in bribes. Damn, they usually suspend the execution as long as you don't fuck around again. Oh, yeah, this guy got 156 million in bribes. They didn't like that. That's a lot of bribes. Might be the only way to fight corruption nowadays. The fines for these crimes are less than pocket change for a multinational company. Mike from PA thought is spreading. Mike from PA thought is spreading.
People in Miami, as elsewhere in the country, especially Republican voters, is much more fixated on what are you doing for me here at home? Why are we worrying about interventions abroad? What are you doing for us here at home?
Do I participate in any DSA caucus? I don't currently do, but in the new year, I'm going to change that. Basically, I've been implementing some changes around here, and so I'm gonna change that. That's one of my New Year's resolutions. Is I'm gonna get more involved with DSA directly.
And this is a tremendous warning, I think, to the Trump administration, Trump in particular, that the focus has to shift to domestic interests, especially around the economy, rather than these war games with tremendously high stakes in the Caribbean.
Well, we want to thank you, Alejandro Velasco, for joining us, Associate Professor at New York University, historian of modern Latin America, former executive editor of NACLA Report on the Americas, author of Barrio Rising, Urban Popular Politics, and the Making of Modern Venezuela. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news apps.
Oh, I need to get the Democracy Now! App. Meanwhile, from the Associated Press, a Chinese whistleblower now living in the U.S. is being hunted by Beijing with help from U.S. tech. Oh, yeah, whistleblower. Within China, this technology helped identify and punish 900,000 officials last year alone, nearly 5 times more than in 2012, according to state numbers. Beijing says it is cracking down on corruption. But critics charge that such technology is used in China and elsewhere to stifle dissent and exact retribution on perceived enemies. They're actively pursuing those people who fled China as a way to demonstrate power, to show there's no way you can escape. Yakui Wang. Oh, a fellow at the University of Chicago, huh? What I learned in China, obedience gets you nowhere. Oh, okay, interesting. For over a decade, I have worked for international human rights organization. I too have suffered repercussions. The Chinese authorities have monitored my activities here in the United States and used internet trolls to harass me online. What? By the way, this could just be a paranoid fantasy, and this is just people disagreeing with you in comment section. They have menaced my family in China as a way to pressure me to end my work. So they didn't actually do anything to them. The FBI does that all the time, motherfucker! I know dozens of people that have had the FBI show up at their door. What the fuck are you talking about, little bro? So what the fuck? So again, no evidence. These are all disprovable. And then it's funny because the US does this all the time. More and more Americans are now, perhaps for the first time in their lives, facing threats from their own government for simply doing their job, speaking their mind, or protesting. As someone with experience challenging one of the world's most ruthless and powerful governments, I have one important piece of advice to share. Show courage. This is not simply a display of moral strength. It's also an effective strategy for fighting back against creeping authoritarianism. Such obedience comes from a place of weakness, not strength. In Chinese, there's an idiom to describe how the government operates. Piran Paiying, or bully the weak and fear the strong. I honest to God think that these articles could basically just be described as a form of pandering. It is pandering to a constituency that literally doesn't exist except at the highest reaches of American foreign policy blob. I mean, this article is just, this is it? This is what you're writing? Over the years, I've received numerous messages from people across China saying they had been unjustly treated by the government, but did not want to make this injustice public out of fear. Can you give an example, even one? Like, I'm not saying that the Chinese government does not do repression against dissent, but can you at least give me something? I have seen bullies respond to strength, even in the case of the Chinese Communist Party, which commands arguably the world's most sophisticated system of repression. It is costly both in resources and reputation to censor, try to intimidate, and prosecute people on trumped-up charges. Once you demonstrate that you are not easily cowed, it will be a persistent headache. They bully may simply drop you as a target. In the case of Mr. Morong, 2 days after his online post, the police summoned him for an interrogation, and they decided not to arrest him. Okay, so her example of the most ruthless government is they investigated a guy and decided not to arrest him. That's the one example she has. A Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Louis Xiaobao, died in police custody. Guys, they're giving out peace prizes. He called for political reforms and was involved in campaigns to end Chinese communist one-party rule in China. He was granted medical parole. Wait, she said he died in prison. Huh? He got medical parole. Huh? So you just lied? He returned to China to support the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests. He was also the president of Democratic China magazine. Okay, so he was a CIA agent. He was a CIA asset. He echoed the new cultural movement's call for a wholesale westernization and rejection of Chinese traditional culture. Look who we give peace prizes to, man. Like, come on, dude. Modernization means wholesale westernization. Choosing a human life is choosing a Western way of life. The difference between the Western and Chinese governing system is humane versus inhumane. There is no middle ground. Westernization is not a choice of a nation, but a choice for the human race. Okay, guys, what the fuck? It went to, wait. He needs China to have 300 years of colonialism. It would require 300 years as a colony for it to be able to transform into how Hong Kong is today. Yo, he said, I have been obsequious toward Western civilization, exaggerating its merits, and at the same time exaggerating my own merits. I have used this delusional idealism to assign myself the role of savior. I now realize that Western civilization, while it could be useful in reforming China at its present stage, cannot save humanity in an overall stance. The quote was nonetheless used against him, he has commented. Even today, radical, patriotic, angry youth still frequently use these words to paint me with treason, because it is... I mean, what can you even say? This is who the New York Times is saying. I mean, like, come on. That's who gets the Nobel Peace Prize. Colonize me! Colonize my country for 300 years, Western superiority! Like, that's who you're giving peace prizes to. That is, I mean, without comment. What more can you say? What more can you even say? That is unbelievable. Okay, let's talk about the floods. If you're in Washington State, how is the floods How are you doing? Jesus.
The breaking news this morning, rivers in the western parts of Washington state are surging, shattering records and forcing people onto their roofs even to get to safety. There is new video coming from the Coast Guard rescuing 4 people. We're showing you it right here. The 4 people were inside. I mean, just look at the water levels. They were forced into the attic of this home, surrounded by 8 to 10 feet of water. The crew hoisting them up to safety one by one. That is part of what is becoming a big effort in this area. Floodwaters are reaching as high as 15 feet in places. Farmers on tractors, volunteer firefighters helping to rescue their neighbors in the midst of all of this. In one county, at least 33 people have been rescued over just the last day. Swift Water rescuers responded to dozens of calls, we're told, for help. This morning, they are keeping...
Am I off base for thinking that Maduro is actually popular? All this stuff about him being authoritarian is cap? No, I think you are off base. The reality is that the economy in Venezuela sucks because it's been fucked by the U.S. So of course people are unhappy. Like let's be completely honest. If you feel poorer and your life sucks more, you're going to be like, well, this shit sucks. Anybody with even an ounce of intellect can understand that most of Venezuela's problems are due to the United States of America literally targeting it for regime change and trying to destroy its economy. And I think a lesson is learned. It's why, in Mexico, in Brazil, they're forced to kind of cave to Washington a little bit because they don't want to go the way of Venezuela. Venezuela is being annihilated, so the left in Latin America is constrained because they can't go against the United States so hard because this might happen to them. So it's a balancing act of like, how much can we get away with because the United States is intervening in our countries, and it sucks. Everything that they do that sucks is because the United States is forcing them to do it. Why is Maduro giving every man, woman, and child a gun? I mean, listen, I do think that the Venezuelan people resist against American invasion. That's obviously something that they're not going to support. But that's a different story from being like happy with the way things are going. And honestly, I'm sure a lot of people just don't want to experience this hell anymore. And that's reasonable, man. It's reasonable.
A very close watch on the Skagit River, which could hit a peak of more than 38 feet near Mount Vernon. The governor
doesn't mean they're supporting the regime change or the opposition. It just means that, I don't think Maduro is the most popular guy in the universe.
Warned late last night that this next 24 hours are most critical and potentially dangerous as they wait for the rivers. CNN meteorologist Allison Chinchar is tracking all of this. What is the situation right now, and what are you seeing for the rest of the day?
Right, so the situation is that we have an enormous amount of water that is just kind of sitting in place for some of these areas. Look at this video. Now, this portion of Washington is extremely far north, up near the Canadian border. You can see all of this water. I mean, this is normally a roadway that would be right through here, and it is entirely underwater because of not just the rain that has fallen, but a lot of the water that has kind of come out of the banks of some of the nearby rivers and streams. And this is just one of many. We have several more rivers, creeks, and streams that are either at or above their flood stage right now and are expected to stay that way through at least the rest of the day today. So you look at all of these dots, or these tiny little squares on the map, and these indicate all of the river gauges that are either minor, moderate, or major flood stage, keeping in mind that some of them may not even crest until later on today or even perhaps very early Saturday morning. Now, one of the rivers we've been keeping a close eye on, this one here, the Skagit River near Mount Vernon. Again, you can see we don't know if it's still going to keep rising and by how much. The forecast crest is about 38.5 feet, but it's already at 37 points, which means we've already broken the previous record. At this point, anything above that really becomes a moot point. It's just going to continue to break its own record at this point. We've already seen the impacts from that in the form of a lot of those roads and streets just inundated by all of the water. The good news is we are seeing much less rain coming down at the moment. This is a look at the radar. This was much fuller yesterday morning when we were showing this to you. We still have rain out there, just not quite the volume that we were seeing at this same time just 24 hours ago. Now, you've also got a lot of the flood watches in effect, but some of these are also even in anticipation of the next event that's coming, because while we have less rain today, the rivers are slowly falling. We have heavier rain that will return on Sunday.
As critical rescue efforts in the Pacific Northwest continue to be and are already underway, rivers that were expected to reach major flood stage today have crested, we have learned this morning, and that is good news. But the very serious threat that this weather event has presented, it still remains. Flood waters have inundated communities in Washington state, forcing people even onto the rooftops to get to safety. One woman living along the Nooksack River describes what it has been like really facing this threat now for days.
All night we could hear trees coming down, crashing, boulders rolling in the water from inside the house.
That is Abby Yates. She lives in Whatcom County and is a member of the emergency response team for the Nooksack, and she's joining us right now. Abby, thank you so much for being here. How are things going?
It's been a really stressful time for our community. Where I live on the Nooksack River is upriver from several of our communities here in Whatcom County. And so the river crested at my house yesterday morning, but it didn't crest downriver until I believe during the middle of the night. And I've had a lot of friends and family who have had to be evacuated. It's been very scary.
Scary, terrifying, just the video that that you've been kind of tracking how this has played out. That's scary enough. I can imagine it's all the more scary, and it reaches a whole other level in the middle of the night as you're kind of dealing with this and facing this down. What has that been like?
Yeah, so I'm about a 30-second walk from the river from my back door, and my bedroom is on the backside of my house. And so all night, literally just trees coming down. There's an island on the river bar, and we lost, it had to have been probably at least 50 trees in the middle of the night 2 nights ago. It's calmed down a little bit last night, but it was still loud. You can literally hear these giant boulders going down, huge cedar trees going down the river. It's just really unbelievable.
The mayor of Orting was on with me yesterday, and he said one thing that people maybe don't appreciate is not just the level of flooding, but at least what he's seen, how fast the water is moving, which is why it is so dangerous. Are you seeing that too?
Yes, for sure. I've never seen the water move this quickly. In the floods of 2021, it was higher at my home than it was this time, but the water was much faster
You've lived on the banks of the Nooksack River most of your life, and you are really integrated, and you are a member of the community there. What do you think this is going to mean for your community, and kind of once the waters finally start to recede, what people are going to be dealing with?
The things that I was hearing from people yesterday on our community groups online and from people I know is people literally just got their homes or are still in the process of fixing their homes from the last major flood in 2021. And it's been really devastating to finally feel like they have their home back, they have that sense of security, and now they're starting all over again. I have a friend who didn't leave her home. She really thought it can't be as bad again. They just got their home fixed and their home was underwater and they were trapped and had to be rescued.
Problems like this are just going to continue to accumulate because of the way that climate change has basically ended as a political topic that people even discuss. As these environmental disasters, Pacific Palisades burning down, that was like one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the country. And they couldn't even get water out of the fire hydrant. Not cold enough for it to be snow that packs up in the mountains. Now it just rains. The host of the Game Awards lost everything in that fire. That was a pretty nice neighborhood. Flooding in eastern Washington is reaching historic levels. This is the Snoqualmie Falls. About 30 miles east of Seattle. The image on the left is the usual flow this time of year. The image on the right is what it's like now. It looks to be like 50 times the flow.
And so it's just, there's a lot of devastation, and it's going to take years and years to recover from this in our community.
Yeah, just an example from 2021, and they're still just now recovering. And what that now means, our meteorologist was on earlier this hour and said that the rain is dissipating, but heavy rain, at least in certain places, is going to be picking back up on Sunday. What's your biggest concern?
My biggest concern, I live in Everson outside of city limits. There are at least a couple dozen homes that have been since the last floods, and that entire road was shut down again. And so driving through yesterday and seeing the water for miles and miles, it was just really terrifying. And what I keep seeing from my friends in the flood zone is that they're just really scared. My own aunt She had water up to her, almost to her door. And she said, if there's any more water that comes down from the sky, it will be back in their home. And they also just got their basement redone.
Story after story. Abby, thank you for what you do. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's nice to meet you. I'm so sorry it's under these circumstances.
Oh, Francesca's over on Caroline's stream. That's great. I'm happy. I was just talking to her yesterday. So that's good to see. Glad to see Fran getting pushed by more and more people. It was always my goal that other people would jump on the Mike from PA bandwagon on pushing these Wisconsin socialists. So it's great. And Fran is awesome. So I'm very excited for her. Actually, she did just DM me this yesterday. Let me see what she had. She DM'd me yesterday. What did she DM me? She said, Mike, could you watch this?
State Representative Francesca Hong, and I'm running to be the next governor of my home state of Wisconsin. Our campaign is building a movement for fully funded public schools, free childcare, paid leave for all, and health care for everyone. A Wisconsin that actually puts working class people first. I'm the only Democratic socialist in this race, the only single mom, service industry worker, and renter. I'm refusing all corporate PAC money, APAC money, and I refuse to sell out our communities. But we're up against big money and the establishment, so I need your help. Please chip in whatever you can. Even $10 makes a difference. I know that together we make better possible. Let's go. Hey folks, I'm State Representative Francesca Hong, and I'm running to be the next...
Yeah, chef. Looks pretty cool. It's going to be... That race is wide fucking open, chat. So let's keep our support behind her. All right. So let's keep covering it.
A dangerous situation.
What is going on with my YouTube? Mike vindicated. Mamdani effect is seeing more people moving to New York, not leaving it. A month after Zohran Mamdani's stunning victory in New York City's mayoral election, the mass exodus of wealthy residents that landlords and real estate agents, especially down in Florida, had predicted has failed to materialize. Instead, sales of luxury homes priced above $4 million were up 31% in November, saying that there were a total of 176 contracts priced at $4 million or more. Notion that people are going to flee New York because they don't like the mayor is pretty ridiculous. If there were people who were thinking about moving to Florida or another state to escape taxes and they're older or retired, maybe this would be a bit of a push. But overall, most people are just going to stay put. I think a lot of the reaction of people is overblown. They got panicked, but New York is New York. If you look at the city in general, there has been no Mamdani effect. Core Cochrane Group broker Noble Black told Fox Business on Monday. Black told Newsweek, oh yeah, the alleged exodus, they said, that would have weakened New York City by depriving it of an important tax base while bringing more riches to Florida. 1 month after Mamdani's victory, the hype around the so-called Mamdani effect appears little more than wishful thinking, the data shows. People like Elon Musk pushed this idea. Embarrassing. Black told Newsweek he recalled 2 clients who stopped their search for a property in New York City after Mamdani's nomination, saying their financial advisors told them to wait. I remember thinking then, this is kind of ridiculous. And sure enough, even before the mayoral election, both of those buyers restarted their search. They came back into the market, he added. You know, it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction of people seeing the headlines and being scared, but came back into the market, Black said. Olshan said the Manhattan luxury market has been doing very well, mostly because of the fact that the stock market has been fairly robust. Wall Street had record compensation in 2024, Jonathan Miller, president of Miller Samuel, told Newsweek, adding that luxury home sales are on the rise because compensation is very high. That's what we're seeing in our housing data, that the high end is outperforming the overall market. After the New York City mayoral election was, boy, I hope Mamdani wins because the wealthy are going to flee Manhattan and come to Florida. That's not in the data. There's no uptick. It's all very odd. He's wah, wah, wah.
We're monitoring a dangerous situation developing in Washington state. At least 6 rivers are hitting major flood stage this morning. That is the most severe level of flooding, and the water is still rising. Officials have warned of catastrophic flooding, ordering evacuations for up to 100,000 people. Many of those evacuations are along the Skagit River's 100-year floodplain. That river is expected to rise at least 6 feet above its previous record. Already, swift water teams have been making rescues. One mother took this video inside her home. She told CNN that the water reached 3 feet high in her basement. And on the roads, high water, mud and debris all blocking traffic and shutting down roads statewide. Washington State Patrol has urged drivers not to try to drive through the high water. They posted this message: you drive a car, not a boat. Let's get right to CDN meteorologist Allison Chinchar for the very latest on this situation, which seems to be getting worse at this point, Allison.
And that's typically what happens with river flooding, because it's more of a delayed effect. You can see the video here next to me. This kind of showing how they are trying to reinforce one of those flood walls that are there, the barrier that is meant to protect the communities around the river. Again, just trying to reinforce it and make sure it holds and does its job as those rivers are expected to rise around this community. But the real question is, okay, but how high are the rivers forecast to actually get in these areas? Well, we take a look at the Skagit River specifically, because that is forecast to get up to record levels. The forecast crest 41 feet, more than 41 feet. You can kind of see that peaking right there on that map. The previous record level was 37 feet. So we're not just talking a little bit above. You're talking significantly above where even the previous record was met. And flood stage alone begins at just 28 feet. And that's when you start to see some problems where water intrusion starts to happen in some of the surrounding areas. It's not the only one, though. It's one of several. All of these dots here indicating a river gauge that is set to be at either minor, moderate, or major flood stage over the next several days. And keep in mind, some of these are not forecast for several more days, because you have to wait for all of that runoff to come down from the rain to eventually flow back into a lot of these. Now, it is still raining across much of this area, so that's going to add to it. So it's not just the runoff from the previous days, but we're also adding new rain on top of it for these areas. That's why you have the flood watches in effect around Seattle, Tacoma, and much of the Pacific Northwest, but also downstream. So you also have some of these in effect for portions of Idaho and Montana as that system continues to progress eastward. This is the atmospheric river that we've been talking about here. Again, that large plume of moisture that is just being funneled into the Pacific Northwest over and over and over again. So it's that constant stream of moisture back to back that's really leading to a lot of these issues. Not just the flooding because of the rain itself, but again, that delayed effect. Here's a look at the forecast. Again, notice as we head into the next 48 to 72 hours, it starts to dry up, and that's exactly what these areas need.
But it is very much an ongoing, developing situation. Still nighttime there. When people wake up, I think they're going to need to take some action in some places. As I was reading, highways to Vancouver have been shut down this morning. A lot going on. Allison Chinchar, you're watching it all for us. Thank you.
People living in communities across Washington state are being told to leave their homes. 8 rivers and creeks are hitting their most severe flood level this morning. Rescuers waded through nearly, as you see here, waist-deep water to get to several people and bring them to safety from an RV park near the city of Ording, which is about 20 miles southeast of Tacoma. And the rain not letting up. Another 1 to 3 inches is possible today, and showers could still linger into tomorrow. But what are they dealing with and how are they handling it? Joining us right now is the mayor of Ording, Washington, Mayor Joshua Penner. Mayor, thank you for being here. Just tell me what is happening and what has happened. How do you describe how hard the community's been hit so far?
Good morning. What's happened is 3 exceptional events in a row. We have this atmospheric river that's hitting the entire region. And normally we see one of these events maybe every 5 to 10 years. We've had 3 in the last 2 days. And so we're on our third hit of this atmospheric river. And each one of those is stressing our flood control projects, our flood control systems. We've done relatively well here in Ording. We've planned for this significantly and executed that the emergency operations center that we'd set up. And it's a system-wide, region-wide challenge to respond to these sorts of things. But I think we're doing pretty well, all things considering.
I guess that's the important.
I mean, just like look at the scale. Look at the scale of this.
Kind of the important poll relative, all things considered. I mean, the way the governor had talked about it is this: when it comes to some records, they're not just going to be broken; they're going to just be shattered. I mean, what's your biggest focus right now? What do you think? What's your biggest area of concern?
Well, I think my biggest challenge is getting accurate, timely information and making decisions. As you know, we issued an evacuation order for part of our city. Doing that while kids are on their way to school or parents are on their way to work is real challenging. Being able to identify where the danger is, communicate and effective out of any potential danger area requires coordination between different partners, and it requires people on the ground actually going door to door and connecting with our citizens.
I was wondering how things are going with that regard. We've seen a lot of reports. We've seen of water rescues. I mean, have you heard any reports of injuries, like how people are managing? Because according to the forecast, it's still set to be coming.
Well, folks are scared right now, and there's good reason to be scared because these rivers. We do multiple swiftwater rescues a year. They can be very dangerous. I think what people can do is they can pay attention to the channels where they communicate most, whether that's social media or news or phone tree. And we try to put out our information in every modality possible. We also work very closely with our swiftwater rescue teams through the county and the state. It's a dangerous situation. You don't want to get stuck in the river. It's not a slow moving river. It's a very fast moving river in this area. And we're between two rivers in our city. It covers a relatively large geographic region, and we're doing what we can to work with our partners to make sure that it's covered, such as that RV park, which is maybe 4 or 5 miles outside of downtown.
And as we know, when the rain stops, the river can still rise for a time. So you still have hours and likely days before you really are in the clear and can start maybe breathing a sigh of relief here, Mayor. But thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate your time. Good luck. We're going to be watching this very closely.
One of the things that really, 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 really freaking me out is the way the U.S. piracy over the Venezuelan tanker is being covered. An ABC News analysis of satellite imagery and tracking data shows the oil tanker seized by the U.S. off the coast of Venezuela may have manipulated its location data, an apparent attempt, experts said, to circumvent restrictions imposed by sanctions. What are you talking about? It is a ship in international waters. Sanctions by who? The United States is not the Pope of the world. We don't get to go around, according to international law and treaties we have signed, and seize ships. The United States has not declared itself at war with Venezuela. There is no, and this is what I replied. I said, you can really see how controlled by U.S. intelligence the corporate media is by their response to this clear act of piracy with no legal justification in either domestic or international law. The U.S. media pretends there is one. It's one thing. You know what sanctions say? They say U.S. citizens and businesses cannot interact with Venezuelan companies. That's what sanctions are. Sanctions are, we are embargoing you and we're seizing your, any possessions you have under our control, we're going to take. We're going to prevent our citizens and companies from doing business with you. We're going to say other countries and other entities, if you do business with Venezuela, you lose access to the U.S. market. That is what we could do as a sovereign nation. That is what our sanctions can do. To go out on the open ocean and seize a ship, that's piracy. That has nothing to do with the United States of America. If Venezuela wants to sell oil to China, that has nothing to do with the United States. If Venezuela wants to sell oil to Cuba, that has nothing to do with the United States. That is just piracy. And if you say that's okay, then the Houthis bombing the ships going to Israeli ports is completely okay. The difference between the Houthis' actions against the Israeli involved ships and these ships is that Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza and occupying territory in the West Bank and Lebanon and Syria illegally under international law. The Houthis have a humanitarian intervention justification for their blockade of Israel. What is the justification of seizing ships on the open ocean? None. This is just theft. This is the equivalent of just grabbing a gun and hijacking someone else's car and saying, I got away with it, so it's legal now. But Mike, have you considered that might makes right? And that's exactly what the United States is saying. So you better not be, so if China invades Taiwan, then you better not have a complaint about it being wrong, because that would be might making right. You better not have a complaint about Russia invading Ukraine, because that would be might making right. So you better not ever make a justification about the wrongness or morality or legality of any aggressive move if this is okay. I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in that world. I don't want to live in that world of might makes right, because the United States is only 5% of the population, folks. We don't have enough population to enforce our will on the rest of the world. Why does U.S. media keep treating these sanctions as if they are law? Venezuela is circumventing. Venezuela is understandably evading U.S. piracy. There's nothing sinister about it. It's just an assertion by Trump. U.S. officials evade Chinese sanctions dozens of times a day. Trump is not Pope of the world. He doesn't get to unilaterally decide which countries have freedom of the seas at will. When he wakes up one day and decides to steal another country's oil tankers, that's called a hijacking. It's called piracy. It's not enforcing sanctions. What international law is being broken? What UN mandate was sought and affirmed? None. It's just some guy unilaterally deciding to steal from a sovereign country and not even bothering to fake like it has any legal legitimacy. So why is our media doing this work for him? And the answer is because US media is basically just nothing more than a hagiography of CIA pass-throughs. That's all it is. The US media is nothing more than that. And it's a fucking joke. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, Donald Trump is already unpopular. But just how unpopular is Donald Trump? Just how unpopular is Donald Trump? Like, how bad is his popularity getting? And it is, just so you know, abso-fucking-lutely cratering. This is why Trump needs Venezuelan oil so bad.
America and China are in a new nuclear arms race. But this time, it's different.
We have an energy shortage in America.
China is outpacing the United States by at least a decade in developing nuclear power.
Hey, before we get in this, before we talk about China winning, maybe I'll do this on Monday, or maybe I'll do it later. I don't know. I just want to talk about Donald Trump is absolutely fucked. Yo, this is fucking crazy. What the fuck is this lunatic? What is this Hitlerian maniac?
Well, this year's Nobel Peace Prize winner says she received help from the U.S. to get out of Venezuela. Maria Corina Machado spoke at several news conferences in Oslo today. Take a look.
They did not know where I was in hiding in Venezuela, so it was hard for them to stop me. And yes, we did get support from the United States government.
Well, the opposition leader, who's long battled for democratic rights in Venezuela, has been in hiding because of treason and other charges that she denies. Machado missed the award ceremony by just hours last night, arriving after her daughter accepted the prize. And she embraced supporters on the street, then delivered this message alongside the Norwegian Prime Minister.
I would say to all citizens of the world in this hour, and assure you that I am very hopeful. Venezuela will be free, and we will turn a country into a beacon of hope and opportunity of democracy. And we will welcome not only the Venezuelans that have been forced to flee, but citizens from all over the world that will find a refuge, as Venezuela used to be decades ago.
Well, joining us live from Oslo, CNN's Paul Mosquera. Paul, great to have you with us. And, you know, listening to Machado in her press conference, you get the sense of how difficult it was, not only for her, but the people that assisted her to get out of Venezuela, getting U.S. assistance, like she says. And then importantly, the question is whether she's going to return. And tell me about what you understand on that, because clearly this is a dangerous endeavor.
Well, Eleni, she certainly will try to get back to Venezuela after this experience, but there's still a lot of questions that remain unanswered. And one of those is, when would this happen? In that sense, when we asked her when she would return to Venezuela, she didn't offer a clear answer. Right now, she said once or at least she intends to spend some time with her family, with her friends that are here at the Grand Hotel located downtown Oslo. But there are other many questions that we, the press, have tried to pose to her. As you can guess, there are still many doubts on how she did to leave from Venezuela, how was the help that the U.S. government has offered her, exactly who was involved in getting her outside from Venezuela. She also was asked about what she thought about a military intervention, a U.S. military intervention in Venezuela. And she said that, well, now it's time for action, not for statements, and made a call to all the international community, to all the democratic countries, to help to make the transition in the country to democracy. So today, this Thursday, we've had 2 chances to see her in different news conferences. The last one has taken place a few minutes ago here at the Grand Hotel, but earlier, when she met with the Norwegian Prime Minister, we had the opportunity to pose one question to her, and I actually asked her if she believes that Nicolas Maduro government knew where she was in hiding all this time, and that's what she answered me.
I don't think they have known where I have been, and
like she has this she has this evangelical. Is she an evangelical Christian? She has this kind of like mania in her face that looks like a it looks like an evangelical. She comes from a conservative Catholic family, and her father was a steel industry businessman. She was a chair of the Opportunas Foundation, which sounds like a CIA cutout. Without even knowing more, that sounds like a CIA cutout to me. She led a petition drive for the 2004 Venezuelan recall referendum. After the referendum results showed electors voted not to recall Hugo Chavez, members of the Sumate, including Macadu, Macadu, I don't know how to say her, I don't know how to say her fucking name, were charged with treason and conspiracy for receiving financial support for their activities for the U.S. National Endowment for Democracy. I mean, Machado, sorry. Machado? I don't know how to say her name. I keep mispronouncing it. I mean, I'm sorry, chat, but this is basically foreign interference, and I think she should have been charged with treason. Somebody took a bunch of money from Russia. I think that would be treasonous. I think she should be... I'm surprised she was free. The decision to prosecute her was part of President Hugo Chavez's campaign aimed at fighting members of civil society, preventing them from exercising their democratic rights to take bribes from overseas. That's their democratic right. She faced treason for signing the Carmona Decree. I mean, honestly, I like... Giving these people more than one chance is fucking crazy. If someone tries to do a coup, they should be locked under the prison. Her family founded the national corporation Electricidad de Caracas and the family steel companies. You stole my factories! Man, it, like, the fact that she's still, like, it kind of puts the lie to the idea that that there is repression in Venezuela, because she's been involved in coup attempts for 25 years. And she still walks around? Like, that's insane. That's actually insane.
Certainly, they would have done everything to stop me from coming here. And actually, I want to take advantage of your question to thank all those men and women that risked their life so that I could be here today.
So right now the question, Eleni, is what is going to happen next. She now has made it to Oslo, but what are the next plans? So far, she said is going to go to visit some doctors, as over the last few months she hasn't been able to get any checkup with the doctors, and maybe she's also considering meeting with some authorities, even though she didn't clarify of them.
Oh, Vio has made me breakfast. It's eggs and waffle, or waffles and egg. Ooh, thank you, Vio. You may pat my head. Mike hates pancakes, confirmed. You're goddamn right. Fuck pancakes. You're eating waffles. Are you saying you don't like pancakes? You're goddamn. You know what? Fuck it. You've polarized me into supporting waffles. I used to like pancakes too, but you guys have polarized me into hating them because of your bad faith. Everything is so polarizing. So true, Casey Tron.
And if that would happen here in Europe, Eleni.
The Queen is here, Chad.
All right, Paul Mosquera, thank you so much. Good to have you with us. So let's talk about Maria Corina Machado, because she, during her speech was saying that the United States helped her leave Venezuela. She alluded to perhaps getting back. You had to flee Venezuela in 2019. You have experience in this. I mean, give me a sense of what could have transpired in the way that she was able to leave, because she also said it was really difficult and people put their lives at risk to get out.
So I'll tell you the way she got out, which is the way a lot of people have gotten out, including Juan Guaido and others, is obviously under the protection of U.S. intelligence. And I can't say clearly, but possibly the U.S.
People pretend like the U.S. is still not interfering in every country's fucking politics.
Non-functioning embassy there, or other embassy. She would have been smuggled. I can't assert this, but this is the normal modus operandi, which is that you would be smuggled literally in the back of a car, and then taken across checkpoints where you have someone friendly, and then taken to the coast. And she entered the Netherlands through Curacao, because those are high, choppy seas, but it is the closest foreign country other than Colombia. So what you do is you get to the coast and await a boat that takes you across those choppy seas. Of course, that boat is now protected by that enormous flotilla of United States force to get into Curacao. Once you're in Curacao, you're in the Netherlands. Then the Netherlands flies you to the Netherlands mainland in Europe, and then from there into Oslo. I know it's really under wraps how she got out and how she would get back in. but that would be, from all indications, that would be the route that she took.
I mean, you mentioned how she would get back in, and the question is, should she go back? Clearly, she's under the spotlight. Maduro is definitely watching very closely in terms of her movements. She's been able to hide effectively for around 15 months. What's your sense?
Well, I mean, if she comes back...
They gave her the Nobel Prize so she could do more regime change coup operations, and then it would look like Maduro is so evil. He arrested a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, but she walks around going, invade my country, bomb the children. Like, it's pretty weird to give that person Peace Prize.
If she comes back,
the peaceful pro-war,
if she comes back and resumes, you know, her video from the sort of blank white wall behind her that nobody knows who it is, you know, where she is, it would be a huge, huge coup and a big debilitating, a big blow to the power of Maduro to repress his own people. Because don't forget that what has happened is that everybody who has worked in exile, and I've got myself three arrest warrants from Maduro, it suits him for people to be overseas, because while you can sort of do the international route of international media, press conferences, and meet with heads of state, which I fully expect her to do, the ability to then go back in and continue to lead your people would continue to put Maria Corina Machado in a unique situation that no other Venezuelan opposition leader has been able to do.
Just very quickly, Vanessa, how long do you think Maduro will be able to hang on? There's, I guess, speculation, anticipation of perhaps a land strike by the United States into Venezuela.
Well, I mean, I think it's very telling that although he kind of gripes and moans, and then before the griping and the moaning about the seizure of the oil tanker, was dancing around to, you know, don't worry, be happy, which is even more ridiculous. But I think that, you know, we had also the other thing that hasn't very much been covered in the media, the incursion into Venezuelan airspace of 2 American warplanes yesterday. And they went in and they flew around and nothing happened, because what's Maduro going to do?
Yeah.
You know, it's increasingly showing the fact that while he can complain, there is really no effective to the American action. So I think that we're going to see an escalation of the.
So basically, she's like, look at how the U.S. committed crimes without any response. Wow, I can't believe the opposition is hated in Venezuela.
Those actions in the coming days, and land strikes that take out command and control, and would be next.
All right, Vanessa Neumann, great to have you with us. Thank you so much for your insights. Much appreciated.
All right, so with affordability as a top concern for many Americans. All right, so with affordability as a top concern for many Americans, new polling shows President Trump's approval on the economy is falling. According to the latest AP and ORC poll, just 31% of Americans approve of Trump's handling of the issue. That's the lowest level recorded in Trump's first or second term. On social media yesterday, Trump pointed to Wall Street as proof the economy is thriving, writing, quote, stock market just hit an all-time high. When will the fake polls show that I am doing a great job on the economy and much more? And in another post, he lamented, when will I get credit for having created, with no inflation, perhaps the greatest economy in the history of our country? When will people understand what is happening? When will polls reflect the greatness of America at this point in time and how bad it was just 1 year ago? Caddy, when?
I mean, I think Peggy Noonan points to something very smart in her column this morning, which is that there is the president just isn't alive, is the way she phrases it, to the anxieties of American people. And even when he's there touting the stock market, which, yes, is booming, it is what economists are calling this K-shaped economy. He's pointing to the people at the very top. But over a third of Americans don't even own stocks. So they're not reassured by the fact that the thing that he touts as a success is helpful to them because they don't own shares in the stock market. And at the meantime, he's out there in the Poconos saying that any talk of affordability is something of a hoax and belittling it and saying that the way they should handle it anyway is to buy less dolls, when Politico had that great survey of the economy recently. Americans are anxious about everything from they're missing healthcare trips, they're missing prescription drugs, they're skipping them because the prices are too high. They don't want to.
The Gray Bull Rescue, meet our founder. Gray Bull Rescue Foundation was founded by Brian Stern. Together with a team of former special operations and intelligence veterans, he left swift rescue missions amid the chaos. They saved 117 stranded Americans in one day. He's led missions to Sudan, Haiti, Israel, and Gaza, along with operations of the United States during the Maui wildfires and Hurricane Ian. So this is like a mercenary group that the CIA uses and the rich use. This is like when in the Resident Evil movies, when all those like Umbrella officials were like, you know, getting rescued during these first parts of the zombie apocalypse. Like, holy shit, dude. All right, let's talk about how Donald Trump's approval rating is crashing.
Take a flight for a holiday to see their family because they can't afford it. So there is
67%. And by the way, chat, this is it for Trump. This is it. 7% disapprove. 67 of people that you're 40 years old. You're 40 years old. They didn't hear you. Theo, try again. We heard it? Oh, okay. Why is it fun to make the youngs cringe? Because you were seeing the light of sentience and you're fucking with it. And that's funny. It's like rage baiting your dog. If you can rage bait your dog, that means your dog has opinions about what is good behavior and what is bad behavior. Your dog has a sense of right and wrong. And when you rage bait your dog, you're seeing that light of sentience in their eyes, and they're like, you're acting in a way that's not fair. And they get huffy about it. They get annoyed. It's funny. But the dog is still socially aware. Like, he gets mad, but he doesn't bite you because he still loves you. So he's having these complicated emotions where he's annoyed with you. You're breaking the rules, but he also loves you, so he won't bite you. That's a very complex emotional state. That's why we like seeing it, because it's funny.
Term. On social media yesterday, Trump pointed to Wall Street as proof the economy is thriving, writing, quote, stock market just hit an all-time high. When will the fake polls show that I am doing a great job on the economy and much more? And in another post, he lamented, when will I get credit for having created, with no inflation, perhaps the greatest economy in the history of our country? When will people understand what is happening? When will polls reflect the great...
I inherited a mess from the Biden administration, the worst inflation in history and the highest prices our country has ever seen. In other words, affordability just 13 months ago was a disaster for the American people, but now it's totally different. Prices are coming down fast. Energy, oil, and gasoline are hitting 5-year lows. The stock market today just hit an all-time high. Tariffs are bringing in hundreds of billions of dollars, and we are respected as a nation again. When will I get credit for having created, with no inflation, perhaps the greatest economy in the history of our country? When will people understand what is happening? When will polls reflect the greatness of America at this point in time and how bad it was just 1 year ago?
He's a crying bitch. Holy hell. I'm trying not to say it, but it slipped out again. God damn it. He's a crying little crybaby.
Of America at this point in time and how bad it was just 1 year ago. Caddy, when?
I mean, I think Peggy Noonan points to something very smart in her column this morning, which is that there is the president just isn't alive, is the way she phrases it, the anxieties of American people. And even when he's there touting the stock market, which, yes, is booming, it is what economists are calling this K-shaped economy. He's pointing to the people at the very top. But over a third of Americans don't even own stocks. So they're not reassured by the fact that the thing that he touts as a success is helpful to them because they don't own shares in the stock market. And at the meantime, he's out there in the Poconos saying that any talk of affordability is something of a hoax and belittling it and saying that the way they should handle it anyway is to buy less dolls, when Politico had that great survey of the economy recently. Americans are anxious about everything from they're missing healthcare trips, they're missing prescription drugs, they're skipping them because the prices are too high. They don't want to take a flight for a holiday to see their family because they can't afford it. So there is a real crisis of people in the bottom third of the American economy who don't own shares, not being able to afford things. And to hear the president say, this is just, this is a hoax, you're making it up, Democrats are making it up. His inability to empathize with the American voters is probably his weakest point. That's going to be a problem for him going forwards if people are going to carry on feeling this. And those 35 Republicans who won their seats by less than 13 points, they know what that means for them going into the midterm elections. They know what that disconnect actually means in terms of votes for them.
That's such a great point by Caddy, Mika, and it reminds me of what Peter Baker with the New York Times said yesterday. He said Bill Clinton was able to say to Americans, I feel your pain. Mm-hmm. They believed him. He was extraordinarily successful as a politician for decades because of that. And Peter said that Donald Trump doesn't feel their pain. He's like, I feel your anger. And when that anger was turned against the others, the enemies, the whomever, the Somalis, the whatever, when he could turn the anger against, quote, the others, so everybody would blame the others, that was one thing. Now, his problem is we have a divided economy. You have the top 10% of Americans that account for over 50% of our GDP this past year. So if the GDP is doing well, if the stock market's doing well, you can bet that with really only 7 tech stocks accounting for the overwhelming majority of the gains over this past year, and really just 1 or 2 stocks, working Americans, middle-class Americans who are struggling to get by, they're not feeling that part of the GDP. And so Donald Trump can't feel their pain and has never claimed to feel their pain, but the anger is directed where? At the billionaires that are getting all the money. Voters' anger is directed at the monopolists, at the multinational corporations, at the big health insurance companies that are denying their mother and father's claims for health care for things that the doctor ordered up. So that's where the anger is going, and that's why there's this massive disconnect right now. Yes, the stock market's doing great, and yes, there are a lot of billionaires that are doing nothing, that are playing golf or out on their yachts, and they're making millions and millions of dollars every day because tech stocks are exploding.
And they go to the glitzy parties at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, but that ain't helping the people who need the most help right now.
No, and Willie, the other that Donald Trump, in terms of the economy, uses for the anger part of the equation that Joe was talking about, is Joe Biden. And I think we're getting to a point where that falls flat.
Yeah, and polling shows that too.
Yeah,
so this is
some
your
believe it should have been
economy
the
now.
first place. But
that AP poll that you referenced earlier, 2/3 of Americans, all Americans, say the economy is poor. Donald Trump has a 31% approval on the economy. And to that, he writes last night, when will you ungrateful rubes understand?
I mean, I want you to understand, chat, that like 31 is pretty much, he's just at the Republican base now. Everybody who is not a self-ID'd Republican pretty much hates Trump now. And Republicans will start falling away when it looks like he's a loser. Like that's just how it goes. And the Republican Party will eventually be forced to turn against Trump because if they're losing everything and he can't run again, they're not going to want to try to like push him to like him saying, oh, I want to run again. They're all just going to, that'll be the moment that they can use. But again, remember, this is about power and money. If Donald Trump is resulting in them losing power and he doesn't have any juice and he's not doing rallies anymore. In the first presidency, Donald Trump was running around doing rallies. Where's all the rallies, Donald? I think he's scared. He's scared of getting shot, which is very funny.
All I've done for you. He doesn't get it. And that's what Peggy Noonan, as we mentioned, is writing about in the Wall Street Journal. Her column is titled, Trump May Be Losing His Touch. Peggy writes, Donald Trump and his tumult nearly 11 months in. He's a rocket going not up, but sideways or down. All polls say down. On Thursday, AP-NORC reported his approval on the economy and immigration has fallen substantially since the spring, with 31% of Americans approving his handling of economic matters, down from 40% in March, and his approval on immigration at 38%, down from 49%. Recent Democratic sweeps in New Jersey and Virginia and this week's Miami mayoral race make 2026 look distinctly blue-tinged. What happens when you lose your great issue? What happens when all that remains of that issue is its least popular aspect? Immigration remains in the news only because of brutal deportation practice. It isn't build the wall anymore. It's don't arrest the poor guy working the line in a second job at the chicken processing plant. Americans don't want that guy thrown out. The longer the deportations continue, the more unpopular and damaging to the administration.
And by the way, chat, I mean, I told you this the entire time. I told all of you this the entire time. Also, I forgot. I just realized something, chat. We're 4 hours into the stream and I didn't chill. God damn it. Why aren't you guys, gals, and non-binary pals reminding me to chill? What the fuck? Here it is, December, and you're not even giving me any fucking Christmas presents. No, I'm kidding. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting it by subscribing to the channel at tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 sub. They added a gift 1,000 subs option. Tallyhoo, thank you for the 20. I saw a bunch of streamers that were like pandering by saying, listen, open presents. Okay, look at that, chat. Thank you guys. 25 gifties, 20 gifties, 20 from Tallyhoo, 25 from open presents. You guys are the best. Guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I saw people be like, oh, no one should be allowed to do that. Come on. Give me a break. I don't expect anyone to ever gift me 1,000 subs. I would be ridiculous. But I'm also not going to tell you that it wouldn't be an incredibly... I would use it to make an extra payment on my student loans. You know what I mean? Like, maybe if you're a multi-millionaire, it's different, but I'm not. And my attitude is, I know all of you are being financially responsible with this stream. I've told people time and time again not to gift if you are in financial struggles. This isn't a prosperity gospel church, okay? Giving me $5 is not going to make your life turn around if you're in financial straits. If you can't afford it, do not give me money. If I win the lottery, I'll gift 1,000. That's it? You win $800 million and you're like, I'll give Mike 5K? That's it? Pay off my fucking student loan. You cheap fuck. 7K subs at $350 each, bro. You're making $25K a month. Pay off your damn loans. Okay, first of all, that's not how taxes work. I regret to inform you that's not how taxes work. 2, I wish we got $350 or whatever. Twitch ends up fucking you in a million other ways. That's number 2. That's number 1. That's number 2. Number 3, do you know how much school I went to? Pay your damn loans. Law school, like 60K. What, 60K per year, you mean? And it's 3 years long. Plus, I also, and here's another one, paid for my undergrad. You know, I left home at 18, and I didn't get any help. Think about that. Just go for a year to get your parents off your back and drop out 1/4 of the debt. Do you recommend law school even though there is a lot of debt? No. The only exception to should I go to law school is A, do you have a contract offer, or are you going to a top, 13 law school / you're getting it paid for by someone else? That's the only time I would recommend you go to law school, is if you're going to a top 13 law school, or it's completely paid by someone else, or you have a contract in hand or a job after you graduate that involves some sort of financial covering of the schooling. My friend is going to the University of Chicago Law. She cooked. Law school rankings. Where are they at these days? Well, seeing how they have it as number 3, I would say you should be kissing your friend's ass because she's probably going to be rich. Assuming she wants to work in big law and be an evil corporate drone. And going to UOC tells me she's evil. I'm sorry, your friend sounds evil. If your friend is like, I'm going to go to the University of Chicago, that's like the most evil coded law school. Literally. Top 14. University of Texas Austin is this high now? What the fuck has been going on with law schools? What the fuck? There's some weird drops. Wow, Cal easily. Cal is that low? Dickinson Law, which is Penn State. Oh, they have what? They have a law school at University Park now. I didn't even know that. American University is this low? Wow. Look at how it's 64K. God damn, that's terrible. God damn, that's terrible. Duquesne is 57K. Oh my God. Pitt is 40K. UNLV is 29K. Georgia State is only 17. Wow. Okay, is that the cheapest one? Okay, Lincoln, Nebraska. Okay, but you're in Nebraska. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'd pay $1,000 a year not to live in Nebraska. Okay, like, sorry. God, the tuition, man. Fucking hell, dude. University of San Diego, 65. Batshit. And that doesn't include like housing costs. 66,000. Not including housing costs. So add another, add another 2,000 a month for living expenses. So it's like you're down 80K per year. Cornell, 81, 81, 81, 81, 84 at Columbia. Oh my God. I mean, at least you're in the top 10. God damn, that's crazy. That's the most expensive one, Columbia? Holy criminy. That's for any tuition. There is no in-state tuition. Full-time student, 84K tuition. God damn, on law books. Law books. You don't even probably even handle them. You just go on Westlaw and you buy your own casebook. It's so stupid. It's so fucking absurd. God damn, that's evil, dude. Does that take interest into account? No. No. Most of these schools are in expensive cities. 2K rent might get you a closet. Yes. That's what I'm saying. You live like a fucking monk, bro. God damn. Stanford #1 according to US News and World Reports. God damn, dude. Yale's acceptance rate is 5%. Oof. Donald Trump, he loves hanging out with Epstein. Oh, Billy boy. The Epstein files have hit. Oh my goodness. We might have to cover these more on Monday. There's Bill Gates. There's Stephen Bannon. There's that, what's his fucking name? The billionaire virgin guy. Branson, thank you. There's some more Bannon. Woody Allen, that's the most, I mean, like that one isn't even like. Also, what is with these goblets? That's a lot of water in that goblet. Jesus. Trump condom. There's Prince Andrew. Steve Bannon and Woody Allen chilling. Alan Dershowitz. Larry Summers with Woody Allen on the Lolita Express. The Jawbreaker gag. Why are you releasing these? I didn't. Dude, I didn't need that. I didn't need that. I didn't need to see that.
They will become. Mike Allen, that's Peggy Noonan writing in the Wall Street Journal this morning. And polling backs up what she says, that even if you talk to voters, supporters of Donald Trump coming out of that rally the other night, whether it's to our reporters or New York Times reporters or yours, they're saying, he doesn't understand our lives.
That's exactly right, Willie. Something that President Biden found on affordability, something that President Trump is finding is you can't tell people are wrong about how they, and that's why you can pound the table about the stock market all you want. But that's why you see in this poll, since March, down 10 points on the economy. Trump down 10 points on crime.
Remember how the centrist Democrats' entire plan was to capitulate to Donald Trump, and I said it was a fucking bad idea because it wouldn't fix immigration? Like, even if you do Donald Trump's stupid fucking plans, it doesn't fix immigration. So all you've done is do a bunch of evil shit to people that don't deserve it, and the problems are not solved. And it wouldn't even make you popular. And what do you know? Lo and behold, Donald Trump comes in and everyone fucking hates it. Everyone who's normal hates it. 60% of people disapproving of Trump's handling on immigration. If you got a 60% of the vote, like, what are we doing here?
10 points on immigration. The only issue where he still is well is specifically border security, where he's down 5. People, including Republicans, especially independents, seeing these, the word you said at the top was perfect, the images of what's happening. And that's what is making people say this isn't what we voted for.
Bannon was Epstein's closest friend, and Larry Summers was Epstein's wannabe closest friend. Have you read their emails and heard of the latest TrueAnon episode on it? No, but I will. God damn it, dude. And the thing that's fucking crazy is he's trying to start a war with Venezuela, but guess what? Americans are not buying it, and yet the Democratic Party won't fucking oppose it. A majority of Americans oppose using military force to overthrow Maduro. 67% of Democrats, 53% of adult citizens say no, 29% are not sure. Only 18% of U.S. adult citizens support an invasion of Venezuela. Even a plurality of Republicans are against it. A majority of independents are against it. So, by the way, a third of the not sure people are Democrats. So if the Democrats came out against it, the disapproval would shoot above 60%. But the Democrats are silent. Why the fuck are the Democrats silent on an issue that the vast majority of their base is against? More Americans would oppose than support giving military aid to a Venezuelan effort to overthrow Maduro, because that wouldn't work. America's widespread opposition to an invasion of Venezuela may stem in part from an overall negative view of foreign military interventions. You don't fucking say. The change in attitude has taken place primarily by Democrats and independents. The share of Democrats saying military interventions make situations worse has risen to 43%. And this is with a right-wing, evil Democratic Party. It's fucking insane, man.
Ukraine and European allies are working on a revised peace proposal from the U.S. CNN's Melissa Bell takes a look at what's in the plan.
President Zelensky has been speaking in a little bit more detail about the revised peace plan that has now been.
I wanted to take a look at this story before we sign
back
off
to the United States. A 28-point peace plan that has now been revised by the Ukrainians to have just 20 points. What he's been telling journalists is that this is a plan that has now been worked on by Europeans and Ukrainians, and therefore represents, he says, a European vision for ending the war in Ukraine. Within those points, one detailing the Ukrainian position, which is that the idea of a demilitarized zone could function only for the Ukrainians along the contact line, not handing over the whole of the Donbass to the Russians as they had hoped for initially. There is also within the revised plan the idea that Ukraine would receive NATO-style Article 5 protections without actually joining NATO. In fact, any mention of it joining NATO has been removed, as has the language that might have barred the country from any hope of joining NATO at some point. There is the inclusion, also the idea that Ukraine might be able to join the European Union in 2027. So a number of points that Ukrainians have turned into the basis, they believe, of further negotiations.
And then every single Ukrainian leaves Ukraine.
That can now take place. We expect that over the course of the next few days, those talks will continue between Europeans, the United States, and Ukrainians. The big question on the minds of many European diplomats and leaders, officials as well, mainly, is what Russia will make of the changes to its initial 28-point plan and whether it is actually willing to negotiate. Melissa Bell, CNN.
Earlier, I spoke to John Luff, the head of foreign policy at the New Eurasian Strategy Center, a London-based think tank, and I asked him about whether Russia will budge on its demands for the Donbass region.
It's very difficult to see how Russia's going to move on this issue. It seems to be a red line that Putin is determined to gain control of the Donbass region. And he's signaled that if he can't achieve this through a negotiation process, then he will simply fight for it. And it is true that the Russian army is advancing very, very slowly in this region. And the Ukrainians believe that it would probably take them several months at least to be able to conquer that territory. So Putin really has the choice here. Does he make some sort of compromise and effectively claims that territory, and President Trump is...
Did I talk about the marijuana thing? No.
To just turn it into a demilitarized zone, possibly into some sort of free
we can talk about that real quick.
It's
another Mike was right moment.
Means. But it would effectively save Putin the effort of having to fight for it, while then being able to claim that the Ukrainians have effectively abandoned it.
Yeah, as we heard, I mean, that plan apparently includes security guarantees. They're supposed to be like NATO's Article 5, but not actual NATO membership. I mean, you've studied Russian behavior for decades. I mean, would Russia accept that? And would something like that actually deter Putin from coming back for more later?
Well, I think it depends very much on the nature of these guarantees. And I think we have to be careful with the word guarantee here, because what does it actually mean in practice? I mean, security guarantees always depend on the quality of your armed forces, first of all, then of your political relationships with allies, all these things. But quite understandably, the Ukrainians are saying, look, if we have to give up some territory, and effectively, Zelensky is accepting that he's probably going to have to do that, even though he's claiming that he's going to have to put this to a national referendum, that in return, from their allies, they do receive something reliable in the form of security assurances. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be down to the Ukrainian armed forces to be Ukraine's ultimate security guarantee. And here, in fact, the assistance of Ukraine's allies is extraordinarily important, because it is going to require building up Ukrainian army, making sure it's properly equipped, properly trained, and in a position to fight if it absolutely needs to. And that will then be an effective deterrent. And I think the Russians have learned one thing from this war, which is that their assumption that the Ukrainians simply wouldn't have the will, which seemed to be them to be the case in 2014 when they annexed Crimea. That's, on this occasion, proven to be completely wrong. The country has mobilized very effective. It's kept the Russians at bay now for nearly 4 years, and the losses inflicted on the Russian side have been absolutely colossal.
The Ukrainians are proposing a demilitarized free economic zone in the Donbas region where U.S. businesses would be able to operate. Now, Russia has been trying to take control of that region completely for months.
This would mean real, solid, legally binding security guarantees for our country.
So it's not clear how Zelensky's plan is actually being received by the U.S., but with Ukraine refusing to accept the surrender of Donbas, the head of NATO is issuing a pretty dire warning.
We are Russia's next target, and we are already in harm's way. When I became NATO Secretary General last year, I warned that what is happening in Ukraine could happen to allied countries too, that we had to shift to a wartime mindset.
Just absolute blather. Absolute blather.
Me now is Ivo Dalter, the former.
Listen, Russia is winning, but they're barely grinding out a win against Ukraine. You think they're going to fight America and NATO? It's just nonsensical bullshit. Basically, the United States of America and NATO, as soon as Russia eventually grinds out the rest of the Donbas and they sign a peace deal, declare victory to save face, the Russian people will be completely over going into any more aggressive wars. They're not going to be like, yeah, we lost hundreds of thousands of men. Yeah, that was great. That was worth it. No, like, it's just nonsensical. What the fuck are you talking about?
U.S. ambassador to NATO.
So now you're saying it's time to close the sky in Ukraine? No.
NATO headquarters. Thanks so much for being with us.
Great to be here, Audie. Thanks.
So first, I want to talk about what we just heard, the wartime footing. Is this fear real, palpable, that you're feeling in that office? And if it is Europe really acting that way, right? Are they pushing as hard as they can?
So the fear is in parts of NATO headquarters and in part of the NATO countries. It's particularly strong, of course, in the countries that border Russia, the Baltic states, Poland, other states in Eastern Europe, and the Nordic countries. Indeed, the Nordic countries, Sweden, Finland, Norway, have prepared for many years for the possibility of a confrontation. It's one of the reasons why Finland and Sweden joined this alliance just a couple of years ago. And the Swedes have just issued a leaflet saying what to do in case of war. There is this sense that war is no longer a theoretical possibility. It's a very real possibility. So one of the things that they are doing is they're spending a lot more on defense, very significant amount. An agreement to spend up to 3.5% on real defense capabilities and another 1.5% on defense-related capabilities, 5% of GDP. It's a big deal. The biggest fear, though, is actually not from Russia. It's from the United States. And the question is whether the United States shares this view of Russia or not.
I want to talk about the money a little bit more, because this free economic zone it looks kind of like an appeal to the Trump administration, whose peace plans often have something like this economic model built in. It's something that they used in the past. I think it was Serbia and Kosovo back all the way in 2020. Obviously, with Israel and Palestine, they talked about making like a resort area. And so what do you make of Ukraine basically trying to say, look what you could have? Do you think that's a winning?
Well, it's clear that President Trump and his administration look at the world as a real estate set of real estate areas in which the resources that may be in the ground are critical. Remember that a few months ago, Ukraine actually signed an agreement with the United States about the exploration of critical minerals and natural resources if and when a ceasefire and a peace were to be settled. So I think what President Zelensky is trying to do is to say, we're the good guys. We're not the ones who are standing in the way of peace. It's the Russians who are standing in the way of peace, and putting on the table a plan that says this is what we would accept, including an economic incentive for the United States to buy into it. I don't think this will get us any closer to peace. Peace will require the Russians to agree to something that the Ukrainians and the Europeans can agree to, and for 4 years that hasn't been the case. This is more a public relations effort by the Ukrainians to demonstrate to the President of the United States that his statement that the problem is Zelensky not accepting the peace agreement, that's not correct. He's more than willing to accept a ceasefire and indeed perhaps open up economic opportunities for the United States.
It's Ambassador Dalder, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Is it crazy that CNN said Palestine? Oh, no. There has been a massive, massive, massive change in people's perspectives. And the Ukraine war, that really should give you pause. Everybody that was a liberal was 100% behind that war and hyping it up and posturing over it and flying Ukrainian flags off their balconies and declaring how they wish they could volunteer. And now where is everybody? Barely even a footnote. But the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people are still dead. Can you imagine dying in that war because you believed Americans or Europeans would help? All right, everybody. Today is Friday, and we are doing movie night today at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We get together in my Discord and we do a movie night. Prescription painkillers, reducing the oversight of the plant and its derivatives to the same level as common prescription painkillers and other drugs. The president is expected to ease access to the drug through an upcoming executive order that directs federal agencies to pursue reclassification, the people said. The move would not legalize or decriminalize marijuana, but it would ease barriers to research and boost the bottom lines of legal businesses. We're looking into it. Some people like it. Some people hate it, Trump said this summer. Some people hate the whole concept of marijuana because it does bad for the children. It does bad for the people that are older than children. Trump cannot unilaterally reclassify marijuana, said Shane Pennington, the D.C. attorney who represents two pro-rescheduling companies involved in litigation on the topic, but he can direct the Justice Department to forego a pending administrative court hearing and issue the final rule. This would be the biggest reform in federal cannabis policy since marijuana was made Schedule I drug in the 70s, Pennington said. Here's what I wrote back in September of 2021. While the Democrats are pretending to be constrained by the parliamentarian, now is as good a time as any to remind you that Biden can legalize weed federally, unilaterally at any time. No, it's a controlled substance. It's what the Controlled Substances Act said. It is an executive branch decision on how to schedule a drug. He just doesn't think weed should be legal. Post deleted. Yeah, this is pretty typical of people who debate with me. If we pull up like my old debates, you'll see a lot of these. All right, everybody. Well, I'm going to call it there. And I'm going to send guys, gals, non-binary pals over to Vio, who has a lot to tell you, chat. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. Don't forget, Mussolini Son of the Century tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. There's the link in the chat. Thank you guys, gals, for all the support, non-binary pals. I will see you all tonight. All right, everybody. Stay safe. See you soon.